Hmm. Hmm. बोला नहीं तो पापा
Can hear.
Good morning, sir.
Good.
Good morning to all our esteemed guests, our international speakers, Mr. Shyam Singh, BTech from IIT BHU, and MS in Fuel Science from the Tennessee State University. Our keynote speaker, Dr. Ilhan Hussain, Professor of English from Dhaka University. Dr. Purnima, Assistant Professor of English from BHU, and Dr. Amisha Gupta, Assistant Professor of Economics from BHU. I welcome you all to our two-day international seminar. I am pleased from the bottom of my heart to welcome you all. Participants have joined us from all over the nation. Jammu and Kashmir, Haryana, Jamia Millia, Diu, Raj Sabha, and Secretariat members. And we got an overwhelming response of 200 plus registration. I welcome you all once again on behalf of MS Kavi College to be a part of the seminar.
Thank you very much, Lokman. Our topic today comprises of a very vast area where a large number of
Hello. Can hear not. I cannot hear anything.
Hello, am I audible, sir? Hello. Am I
Hello?
audible?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, but with a
Okay, thank
very
you.
loud. Is it now turn to speak, or I'm going to listen to someone else first?
I'll just give a short intro, sir.
Okay.
Very sorry for the disturbance. We'll start once again. Our topic today comprises of a vast number of factors to come into consideration. The transition of society from a simple one to a complex one to the present form of global modernized economy where the market has become dominant. It is important to traverse through this evolution of society in terms of the changes taking place in the economy and understand what is the influence on women, or rather, what role has economy and globalization played in women's progress and empowerment. To look into the objectives of this webinar today, we see that one of the important objectives is to integrate gender in the study of socio-economic development and globalization. Economy as a discipline was completely androcentric in the beginning, where it was considered to be a realm of the public. It is important to understand the social embeddedness of an economic organization. We have to understand the gender gaps in classical theories. We will try to figure out during the course of our webinar why gender matters in economies. Statistics, facts, and figures tell us that it is very important to include gender as an analytical category in the analysis of socio-economic development. Therefore, a feminist lens is used so that socio-economic development can be understood in a different perspective. We can construe a close connection between the feminist movement and response to social and economic needs of women in society. Therefore arises the need to revision the economy.
Can you hear me?
To highlight the contribution of women. The most important argument to understand gender, society, and economy is to keep in mind that gender is not a biological fact, but a social construct.
Listen to someone
Earlier,
else first.
women were seen only as agents benefiting from development. Women were invisible from economic development except in their role as mother, daughter, and wives. Later on, policies were made to make women better mothers by focusing on nutrition, health, and family planning. With the integration of women in the economy, there came a shift in the women's role in socio-economic development. With that, I would like to now welcome our esteemed guest for the day, where the market has become Mr. Shyam Singh. It is important to done his BTech in chemical engineering from IIT changes taking MS in fuel science and understand what is the influence on women, or rather, what role has economy and globalization played. One of the important economy as a discipline was complete where it is important to understand the social embeddedness of an economic organization. We have to understand the gender gap in classical theory. We will try to figure out during the course of our webinar why gender matters.
Cannot hear anything.
Very important to use gender as an analytical category for analysis of social. Therefore, a feminist lens that socio-economic development can be understood in a different perspective. We can construe a close connection between feminist movement and response to social and economic needs of development.
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Address the socio-economic development in their role as mother, daughter, and wife.
Voice अभी तक आ रहा है आपका। Hello.
Yeah,
Yeah, I am audible to you, sir.
I am. But
Okay,
there
sir.
is an echo coming backward.
Okay, there was a long gap. Maybe there is some internet connection glitch. So now you can hear us properly.
I can, but there is some disturbance behind you.
Okay.
The earlier recorded message is coming back.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes, sir, we're ready.
Yes, I can hear you.
I would now like to welcome our first speaker, Mr. Shyam Singh. He has done his BTech in Chemical Engineering from IIT BHU, MS in Fuel Science, Combustion and Engineering from the Penn State University. Mr. Singh is President and Chief Marketing Officer at the Thermoplastic Inc. since 1999, and he has been the Vice President and Technical Director at SSEEI. He has a lot of work experience and awards and recognitions from many charitable institutions as well. He has been an alumni. He has received the Alumni of Achievement Awards 2003 from the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences at Penn State, 125th Years Fellow Award 2022 from the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences at Penn State, the Ralph James Award, Petroleum Div of American Society of Mechanical Engineers 1991, Distinguished Lecture Award by the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences, University of Wisconsin, Who's Who in America by Marquis Publication, Who's Who in Science and Engineering by Marquis Publication, American Men and Women of Sciences. Mr. Singh and his family have also been feeding homeless folk on weekly and monthly basis for the last 15 years. And with this very enlightening intro, I would now like to invite Mr. Singh to please proceed with his deliberation. Thank you, sir.
Good morning to all of you, and I thank you for inviting me to speak on a very burning topic. When Dr. Vinamrata contacted me, I mentioned to her that I always talk on the technical issues, mostly and related to the business issue. But the topic I looked at in this conference is very, I don't know how to say it, but it's moving forward, but also it is a little more complex for me to speak on. So I requested that, will it be okay if I speak on my life journey, what I have done, because I came from India. I have been here for almost 50 years now. done so many things, but I like to do this way. I'll split my talk in 3 phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1 will be covering childhood and the school days. Phase 2 will cover the university in India as well as abroad. And phase 3 will cover my journey in the business area. So if the students are listening, I would like to let them know that I'm one of them. I came from a village. I was born in a family which only knows how to do farming. I was lucky enough to go to schools, got my degree, and then I went to the university afterwards. And I had my education done at one of the finest universities, I would call, at Banaras Hindu University. I graduated from that school. The problem is that when you have limited resources, not too many contacts, those days it was very difficult to get where you wanted to go. I decided not to dwell on that, more so than begin to think about what I should do now. Even though I didn't have the resources to go forward, I managed to live in an atmosphere where I met some bright people who gave me some guidance. And thereafter, I chose to move forward. I got admission in the university at the State College, Pennsylvania, which is one of the finest universities actually in the United States as well. My department was ranked number 7, still it is number 7. So being from the village, the gist of my story is this. Being from a village, I managed to reach at this fine school and did my master's in less than 1.5 years. But after graduating, the point was that what is the next phase? Should I go back to India? Should I stay here? The problem was that there were no going back because the opportunities were very limited those days. They're not like now when the kids are very familiar with the issues and they are more knowledgeable about the things, what is happening in the world, both in the technology area and the society, which we were not able to. So when I graduated from Penn State, I was lucky enough to get a really good job. And that job was good enough for me to decide, should I stay here or not? And so finally, I decided to stay here in the US. One of the reasons that I wanted to shed some lights on my journey is because many of the kids, I'm pretty sure at the college, you have more than 60–70% of the students who come from the village, who do not have the opportunity as some other people do, who do not have the resources that the other people do. So to them, my message is that don't let anybody fool you. Don't let anybody say to you that you cannot do what you really like to do. I always say that have a determination, have a conviction, and make sure that you focus on that use all the tools in your toolbox, whether it's the friend circle, whether it's a family who is dedicated to your life. You love your family, you love your friends, and do the thing that you really like to do the most. One of the tragedies that I have noticed back home, parents normally dictate what you should do. Normally, they want it to be what they want, not what you want, which is not true here in this country. You have to let the kids decide what they want to do. In fact, I have 3 children and they wanted to do their things, and I told them, go ahead and do it. And do the very best you can. My message to our children is that if you want to go to abroad, for example, just like I did, things were very difficult those days, was not easy. Very difficult in the sense that you didn't have understanding of the issues, not just financial, but also the family issues. You know, many parents, they didn't want their children to leave, stay around and just work there. I was lucky enough to have a good support from the family, which is also needed for all the students. To listen to your parents, you know, listen to your wonderful teachers who spare their time. They listen to you. They want to give you good education. You will succeed. It's a matter of your conviction, determination, finding the right mix of opportunities. But be determined. Always be determined. I had, after, like I mentioned, a graduation, I felt that I should do something on my own rather than working for somebody else. So in that case, I wanted to find, and I had an itch for a niche actually. So after working 10 years on my life in the business community, I started my own business. At that time, I was doing research and consulting job for US Defense Department and private companies, which were pretty much consistent to what I learned in the college and the schools. But then I saw the opportunities where you can go back and see what else you can do. So with the help of my friends and with my seniors and those who I admire, I established a manufacturing company in 1999. And ever since, we have been working together. Most of us are together for 22 years. And I always admired the people who work with me because they are the lifeline for any kind of progress that we have made. To me, having a good group of people is also important for the students. You need to look up to the people that you can learn something. Earning is only possible when the learning is there. In my opinion, the Indian students are one of the brightest students that I have seen in even college here. And they really have a niche. You know, they really do. They are very, very good. And I personally feel that if one wants to do something, anything that you want to do, you really can. You should just make sure that you have a good dream. You wish it, you do it. Because success is a journey, it's not a destination. A child falls and then afterward he knows how to walk. Failing is not the criteria that to be used to succeed. We all have heard about Steve Jobs, who established Apple. And he had a very small thing to say. He always used to say, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow know what you truly want to become. And he was a perfect example. The man didn't have anything except his brain power. He slept on sometimes in the temples, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna temple in Silicon Valley. He used to eat free meal. So when I see the character like him, we do have opportunities to excel in our life. God has created us equally. He has given us intellect that we can use it properly, and we should definitely follow our heart where we want to go. I wish I had a direct knowledge of the subject matter that was for this conference. But socio-economic development really is a intertwined subject. Social engineering, economics of all the people are intertwined, the way I look at it. They both depend on each other. So my 1 cent worth of saying is that I would love to talk about the subject that you had. I didn't have time. I was not loaded with information unless I was going to download from somewhere else. And I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to go and talk about myself. It is easy to talk about the journey that I had. And if I have done anything, I feel good about our family background, which was, like I said, it was a family where we only knew how to do farming. But now I can say to my friends, I can say to my community that we should never be ashamed of that you came from village. You should be proud of that you learned something that other people may not have. Use that strength, not the weakness. Put the foundation based upon your learning, what you learned from your parents who used to work very hard. Working hard is the key to success. In fact, one of the things that our late Abdul Kalam, our president, used to say that the best brains of the nation may be found in the last benches of the classrooms. And that is so true. Many other intelligent people that I meet in the business world, they are not the brightest student. They have the brightest mind to find out what is good and what is bad and focus on the good, screen out the bad, then move on. So I had requested to, like I said, Dr. Vinamrata, that I wish I had time to learn all the things that very able people that you have in your group going to talk about it. And I'm sure they will do justice to the topic. I won't because I couldn't. So in a few words, I can only say that if you if you have any kind of dream, please follow it. And I'm very sure you will succeed, very sure. But do listen to your, my dear students, do listen to your teachers, do listen to the faculty member. They are your path of success. And they are the one that can make your life brighter, you know. You never try to detour yourself from that path. I will end right here, and if you have any question for 5 minutes, I would love to have a conversation with you, with any one of you, if you want to ask. I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to all of you, and have a wonderful rest of the conference talks. It's about 11:15 in the night here right now. This is the first time I think I have spoken in the night. It's going to be midnight pretty soon. But if you do have any questions, I'll be more than happy to entertain. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing the enlightening journey of your life, for motivating us to pursue the passion of our lives, for inspiring us to be determined to achieve our goals. You very truly said, success is a journey, not a destination. And working hard is the key to success. And that we must follow the dream that we have. Therefore, we can be happy in life. Thank you so much, sir, for giving your precious time and, you know, for especially keeping awake and letting us have a view into your life. Thank you once again. We'll now proceed on with our next speaker. If any viewers have questions, they're free to ask. Do we have any questions? Okay, you can put it in the chat box. If there are any, we'll take them on later on. And so going forward, we'd like to now invite our next esteemed speaker, Dr. Purnima, who is an assistant professor of English in Vasant Kanya Mahavidyalaya, Kamakhya, Varanasi, India. And she has a teaching experience of more than 8 years. She has authored 2 books, one, In Search of Meaning, a collection of poems, published by Pedate Publications USA, and co-authored a book titled Mirari, a collection of poems, which was published by Pigeon Books, India, New Delhi. Her PhD dissertation is on consumer capitalism and nature in the fiction of Ron Rash from Banaras Hindu University. She is a lover of beauty and nature and was deeply moved by landscape mysticism and eco-spirituality while she was working on her thesis. A bilingual writer, she voices her concern for the conservation of nature and women's rights in several of her papers published in various reputed international journals and books in Hindi and English. She also works for women's rights and safety, working with various social organizations like Asmita Foundation and Usha Foundation, and she has been awarded by them from time to time. Living in Kashi, the land of spirituality, she has delved deep into mysticism and spirituality and is also a member of Indian section of Theosophical Society, which works for poor and deprived section of the society. I welcome you, ma'am, and now invite you to please kindly deliver your speech on this topic. Thank you, sir.
I have shared my PPT with Dr. Vinamrita. Can we just show
Okay.
it? Yes, that
Yes.
would be great if you can show the PPT.
Sure.
Where have you shared the PPT in the chat box?
I have WhatsApped it to you. It's in the PDF format. Because I cannot share it from my side.
1 minute. It will take some time actually.
So shall I begin and we can just later on show the PPT?
Yeah, sure.
Yes. So basically, I'm going to talk about glass ceilings and sticky floors. These are terms, mostly sociological terms, but the whole condition for women, because when we say half the population, actually women are half the population. And then when we look at their presence in the workforce, it's considerably very low. So why do we have these glass ceilings or sticky floors or closed walls? That are things that we have to think about, because it's about our identity. It's about the spaces that we live in. And that's also about how much opportunity we get as women. So if we look about the education system, it has expanded, and the enrollment number of women have risen. Girls are getting enrolled. When you look at board results, it is government board results or CBSE board results or ICSE board results, you will see that most of the girls are the toppers. And most of the papers would come with those headlines that women have topped in various exams. Then when you look at the broader scenario, you will find that women in higher positions, like at the level of CEOs in management corporations or at the level of vice chancellors in universities, are considerably low. So what happens to these very young, bright women who are educated, who have all their skills with them? They are good in their skill set, they are educated, they are bright. So what goes wrong when you look at their percentage at higher levels? And especially my focus, because I am from the field of academics, my focus will be on women in academia, but we will talk in general also, that why is it that as we move forward, things get more difficult. So it is glass ceilings and skewed employment statistics to unjustifiable pay gaps. And pay gaps are more marked in private sectors, because when you go at government sectors, pay parity is one thing that remains even for men and women, but a large number of private institutions are working. And in private institution, even at vice chancellor level or at higher professor levels, there is not pay parity. So women are considerably getting lesser amount when you compare it at other positions. And the same as with private sector jobs, women are getting more. There are also problems with work hours. That's why flexible work schedules or flexi hours is something that people are talking about these days. Because for women working in night shifts, that's why we call about the spaces, that safe space is important. So women don't feel safe in certain spaces at certain times. So hours, curfew hours, we talk about curfew hours. They don't have that much access. So they would not prefer a job that goes beyond 9 to 5. And that is, there are a number of reasons because they cannot take those jobs. One of them can be, again, their safety concerns. The other can be that they have other responsibilities at home and they cannot do both the roles at the same time, because they cannot take a longer shift or a night shift because they have to take care of the family, the children, if they have young children going to school, they will come back at home. So they have to take care of everything. So a lot of work that they give as caregiver is not acknowledged. There is no payment for it. Most of the caregiving jobs, especially at home, are neither acknowledged nor paid for.
Same subject, yeah?
Yes.
So, you continue.
Okay. So this you will find that there is a lot of gap that is happening. So you can see the employment statistics at different forums. You will find that statistics speak that women at higher positions are not getting enough. So it is unjustifiable sometimes, and the odds of the Indian employment landscape, and when we compare it to the global landscape, around 40% of women are employed, where men around 60%, 70% are employed, 40% women are employed. But in India, you will find it, and it's surprising and even appalling that from 2005 to 2020, number of women employed is falling. It's not rising. Like in 2005, around 30% women were employed. So by now we must have gone higher up, but no, that's not the case. Women are dropping out of workforce, and from 30%, it went down to somewhere 20-25%. And now during the COVID-19, when there was a mass problem of unemployment, it went down to 19%. So this is again something that we have to think, that we are enrolling more girls, we are educating them, we are making them literate, but when it comes to retaining their jobs, and then women getting jobs and leaving jobs have also become a thing that people are not talking about. Women are able to get jobs on their own, and they are able to go into a certain position, get a salary, good salary, and then they are not able to sustain it. Why? Because one of the most important things that happens to all women is that they will become mothers. And in government sector, maybe you will get maternity leave. In private sector, sometimes it happens that women have to drop off during that time. And after that, when they try to get back a job, it's very difficult for them to get a job because they cannot justify the gap in their career. And then sometimes other responsibilities are so strong upon them that they just drop out from their job. So it's not about not having a particular skill set. It's not about being not having your tools, but it's about that there are other responsibilities which are not being acknowledged. Now people are talking about that maternity should be from 6 months to 9 months. Some organizations have started giving it, but there is a hidden rule also that they will show it on paper that they give 9 months maternity, but as soon as the maternity period starts, especially in private sector, women will be forced into some kind of situation where they will try to quit their job. So it will not be direct, but it will be indirect kind of layoff. So these indirect things, these subtle problems that will be there, that is something that we have to think about, we have to cater to. Can we just move to the next slide? So briefly, I would like to explain the terms. What are these terms? So when we are talking about glass ceiling, it is the discrimination practice that have prevented women and other protected class members from advancing to executive level jobs. So this is important, that because people will undermine you. And there is also the kind of misogyny, right? We often don't realize it, but there is a kind of misogyny that a woman cannot take a certain position, she cannot handle a certain position. And that kind of mindset, patriarchal mindset, comes from outside and comes from within the family also. And they're also forced to take jobs like take a banking job or take a teaching job. Maybe if it's for your suiting your temperament, it's good. But if it's not suiting your temperament, you feel stuck up in the job. But everyone feels that this is a safer place or securer work for women. So some jobs are classified as women jobs, and where some other jobs that women can take are not classified as women jobs. So a lot of women in academia would have done much better in other fields, but they're sticking to academia because that was the only offer that was left for them. So that is one of the problems. Then there is the glass walls, and women feel that there is a limited number of functional fields. We have already talked because they are all related to one another. So you can work in banking sector or you can work in teaching sector, but you cannot work in IT firms or something like that. So these kinds of problems will come, or you cannot be a photojournalist, or you cannot be a wildlife photographer or a traveler or something like that. So these kinds of jobs that are more not so the jobs which are not very that requires some kind of challenge and adventure. Women usually refrain from such jobs, and they're also made to refrain from such jobs. Then glass elevator or escalator. So you also feel that it is very easier for men to move forward in a men-dominated domain. And women cannot move in that same set with the same skill set. They don't move so fast. The problem is that somebody's mic is open. Please close the mic. Please mute yourself. So it's difficult for women to move forward. There's also something called mansplaining. Please mute yourself.
Ma'am, you continue, ma'am.
Yes, I'm trying to continue. So what happens is that they don't have the kind, and there's something called mansplaining. I was talking about mansplaining. So in mansplaining, what happens that men think that women are dumb, and they kind of try to explain things to them. So the things that they already know is being explained to them, and they are thought to be like, they are not thought to be good enough. And so this works as a, when men work in a group, and especially when there are a lot of more men than women, then they don't allow them to grow forward, because they believe in their own belief system. They think that they are not good enough. Then there is this glass cliff. An opportunity a woman may take or promoted into the puts in her a precarious position of utter professional disaster if she fails. This is also very important. If she is doing good, fine. But the moment she makes a mistake, everyone from all corners will try to put her down. So this kind of negative work atmosphere that goes around her either makes her too stubborn. I remember, like, sometimes people say that Indira Gandhi was very tyrannical. What made her so tyrannical? Because when she joined office, she was thought to be very petite, a very simple girl. So she was often thought to be lesser than what she could do. And that made her into somebody who was very tyrannical, because she had to force her beliefs on others. And sometimes she had to become iron fisted. If she didn't do that, she would be attacked more severely than any man. So that becomes very difficult at times. Then our glass ceiling. A time-based impediment to career advancement often faced by working mothers. This is, again, we have talked about earlier, but for working mothers, it never ends. Like when the children are born, it starts during the pregnancy, when their bodies are changing, they cannot digest food. You only get your maternity for 6 months. So for the first 6 months, you're working all the time. You're working, and then when you get your maternity, then also if you take it in the first, you divide it in 3 months, and only the last 3 months of your pregnancy you go for rest. So all the 9 months and the entire clock, you're working with your body changing with difficulty in everything around you. You cannot say that I will not work, because you are full-time working, and you are vomiting, there are hormonal changes, and still you are working, and nobody thinks that you should get any kind of rest at the time. And when the child is born, the next 6 months are for the child, and you take care. But even in the 6 months, when you go back to job, the child is not grown enough. So you have to cater to the needs till the child is 4 or 5 when he goes or she goes to school. After that also, it doesn't end, because a child would need you when they have their examinations, their food, everything in the family. You have to be the caregiver in the family, and it never ends. So you're the primary time, the main time when a person grows in the career coincides with the time when the children are growing. So that's the biggest problem. So what happens, even at initial level, if you get into a job, it's very difficult to get promotions. And in academia also, you need a certain API, you need to publish papers, and you need to be here and there. So that is, you cannot travel too much. You cannot go into too many conferences or seminars. Coming back home and reading is very difficult because usually it is thought that academics is a 9 to 5 job, but it is not. Because if you have to write a paper, you have to study all day, all night long. You have to write your papers. You have to work on referencing and do so many things. You have to, if you are working in social sciences or sciences, you have to go in the lab. You have to work in the lab hours. You have to go in the fields to collect the data and statistics. So it's not so easy to do your research. And when you're not able to do your research, it will actually hamper your kind of growth, career growth, and that you cannot explain, and it becomes very difficult. So women becoming a professor would be at a very later age, or they may not even become professors. They cannot become VC because their CV is not so strong. So in the same time, a man may have done a lot of work, and when you compare their CVs, you feel that, oh, they have done so much work, and actually they would be, a man would be a more suited person for the job or the role. But it is often ignored that how much work a woman has done during the same time, which is unpaid, unacknowledged, and which has no rewards in the end. So, and she's juggling actually between both these things. There are other problems that are very simple problems that happen in some rural areas, that there are not proper toilets or not proper places. So it becomes difficult for a woman to work in those areas. So they often quit jobs when they are given a very difficult kind of posting. They find it difficult to work there. So that is also one of the problems. But in higher levels, it's more about the time management, and it's more about the things in and around her family. And there's also something called the mother's guilt. Because the mother will always feel guilty that she is leaving the child behind. She will feel guilty. She's doing something for herself. She will feel guilty. Okay, I'm neglecting my child. I'm working on my paper, so I'm neglecting my child. Yeah. There was this beautiful interview by Indira Nooyi, and then she said that what happened was that she couldn't go to her daughter's school meetings because and her daughter would be very annoyed. But there were other mothers who were not into such responsible positions. They also would skip the meetings, but they wouldn't feel guilty. But because a mother is working, even the child would feel that my mother is more concentrated on the job. And so that guilt thing comes that it's because of your job. So it is an added strain. It's psychological also. And then you have to deal with it also. So how much more time I can take? So I'll try to conclude in that much time. How much more time can I take?
Hello? Yes, ma'am, you can continue.
I can continue for 10-15 minutes more. Okay, good. So sustained periods of high economic growth since the early 1990s characterized the new education policy. I'm talking about academic, that liberalized the business landscape, allowed India to effectively leap from the much dreaded thing that was happening in the workforces. There was a change, a demographic change also. And the growth, but it has always been like the trajectory, there has been a growth, but it has been lopsided for women. Like the preferred gender has always been man. And be it the crystallized glass ceilings, the unexplainable pay gaps, unconscious biases. Sometimes the biases are conscious, sometimes it is unconscious. That's why I said mansplaining often happens. And mansplaining, gaslighting, these things are often happening to women. But most of the time it is so embedded in the system that you don't realize it. Stereotyping is done. Like for women writers, it happened that if a woman writer writes very strongly about her feelings, then Kamala Das was almost witch hunted for her thoughts and for her writings. And that happens to so many women all the time. So most of the time when a woman tries to talk truly about herself, she is stereotyped as slut. So this kind of shaming and this kind of thing also restrains her. either they will write with, and it has happened for generations, either they will write with a male pseudonym, or if they're writing, they would try to be very perfect in their writing, in that most of the time it will be very difficult for them to tell their true emotions. That is also something that stops them from writing on so many different issues. And sometimes the issues that are most pertaining to the woman herself, she cannot talk about it. And that's the silencing of women that is done. So they become muted in a very patriarchal men's world. So it is that kind of crystallized glass ceiling. And yes, can I take a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you wanted me to talk about the remedies. I was coming to that actually. That's why, because I have 10-15 minutes, so I thought that I will talk more about the problems and then I'll come to the solution. See, basically, when you talk about an overhaul, it comes from everywhere. So it comes from policy making to everything that you are doing, right? So like we talked about, like from 6 months is not enough. Many women feel that 6 months maternity leave is not enough. So people are talking about 9 months maternity leave. Earlier, there were places where there were no maternity leave. So women had to resign, or they had to quit the job at that point of time. So now we already have 6 months maternity leave. We are talking about 9 months maternity leave. Some institutions have started giving 9 months maternity leave. There are other things also. Like I always talk about women's bondage. Like if it's men's world, we women shouldn't go against women. So if you see a fellow woman, because we can better understand other women's position. So if you see another woman who is struggling with her work, or you can always help them. You can always be with them. And then you can also see that if there are there can be some reservations, not at all places, but some reservation, because I was seeing at the 2013 data. So in 431 universities, only 13 VCs, vice chancellors, were women. Now this is startling, because because there are so many women teaching and so many women professors all around India. Then you feel that only 13 of them are at the top positions. Now that would affect everything from policy making to everything, because if you're not at the top position, you're not making the policies. So you have to strive for the top position, and women have to think about themselves. They have to talk about themselves. If you think that you are the only caregiver in the family and you will take all the blame and guilt upon, you have to be, first of all women and all mothers have to be guilt free. You have to think about yourself as you have to be yourself first. So first you have to be guilt free. Then you can tell others that I have to be guilt free. There's a very good advertisement of some brand, but the best part of that brand advertisement was that there is a woman and she forgets to bring the baby food for her baby, and she feels every time she's feeling guilty that, oh, how could I forget that? How could I forget that? So you have to take that guilt away from yourself. So motherhood, because we have idealized motherhood for so long, that a woman has 10 hands and she can do everything and she can manage everything. People are not talking about the mental health of women. People are not talking about the physical health of women. If she is working like from 4 o'clock, she's cooking food and doing everything and laundry and everything, and then she's coming to work, and then she's going back and working odd hours till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the night, and again waking up 4 or 5 in the morning. Is it practically possible? She also needs sleep. Sleep deprivation is one of the biggest problems women are facing. So who will talk about that? We as women have to talk about that. And we as women have to be guilt-free and make others guilt-free. And it starts from the family. It goes to the institution. If there is a woman who is good enough, and maybe she has not so much API, but she can be considered for a position as a VC if she is good enough, if she can handle the situation enough. We can think about reservations at higher levels, not at the lower levels. We don't need it. We are very good at entry level. The problems is at higher levels. So you have to think about things at higher level, because the 6-7 vice chancellor were there in all women's university. I believe that was because women's university would prefer a women candidate. So if that preference is there everywhere, like almost you give even 1/3 preference to women, I think they will be there. at the highest position. So you have to think about that. You have to strategically think that women should be there. At least if there is a 3-term, first term, second term, if there is a man, the third term can be given to a woman. In that way, it will become more flexible. I'm not talking about even equal. 1/3 times, if you offer it to a woman, there will be more women these days, and then they can do work at the planning level. We can talk about flexi hours. During the COVID-19, what happened? That people started using a lot of social media platforms and YouTube and video lectures. That is also one thing that can be used for flexi hours. That women can work from home also came as an example, and people work very efficiently from their home space. So women who cannot work or are not able to work, they can be given such work from home jobs. They can also be given flexi hours, like they can come in and out according to their time, and they can then manage it very well. And women are good at time management. So if they are given those slots, a bit of flexibility, I think they can sustain and retain themselves. If they're so good and right and they are managing so many things at so many levels, it will be easier for them. And the patriarchy has to go. So people have to think about it, talk about it, and you have to talk about your rights. So it's your right to work, it's your right to employability, it's your right to space, it's your right to money, it's as much as it is your right to education. So it's not why are you educating yourself? Why you are learning? So what's your the most important thing for you? So I think you are the most important thing for yourself. So you have to take care of that, and then only you can, I believe, to justify your own worth. So I hope the doubt is clear. So yes, okay. So it is surprising to see that India's female labor force participation rate, which refer to women who are either working or looking for a job, has not only stagnated at much below the global average is around 47% for several years, but has declined. We have talked about it from 2005. It has declined. It's surprising that it is even lesser than Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. So we have to do a lot of soul searching within the family, actually. Why women are dropping off, why we cannot provide them from within the support from within the family. In fact, most of the women feel that they are restrained in their own families from working. So that is something that we have that will not come from outside, that you have to talk about for yourself and with your family. And you have to talk about your right to grow. It's your right. It's not something that you just have the right to employment. You have the right to the best employment. And sometimes it also happens that because of their family, they cannot move out. So if they don't get many opportunities because they have to stick to a certain place. So that should also be something that should be talked about in families, and women should be given more mobility. More movement, and so that they can also decide for themselves that which job, which place suits them more. So that is one more thing that is to be considered. So we have talked about most of the things. We have talked about gender bias. We have talked about insufficient maternity leave. And then there is a mental and physical harassment. Most people know about the physical harassment. And when the Me Too movement started, we all were like made much more aware about it. And the number was huge. So a lot of these kinds of harassments were not talked about, where even women were not able to speak about them. And that was also one of the reasons they would be dropping off. So you have to make any space that women are working, you have to make it a safe space. So you have to make more strict laws for grievances, for redressals of those grievances. So that is also one of the most important things that every institution should take into consideration, that any woman doesn't feel harassed in their work environment. Then mental harassment is often that is unnoticed, because again, when mansplaining is happening, when people are giving stereotypes, labeling is done. Like if you say something very strongly, and if you feel very strongly, people call you feminist. You are a feminist. You are Virginia, or names like that. And then people are also like kind of denying feminism now. So there are terms like feminazis. Like if you are speaking for your rights, you are a Nazi or something. You're not a Nazi for talking about your own rights. So you have to come again outside the guilt that if I'm talking about my own rights, I'm not attacking someone, but I'm defending myself. So actually, women are only defending our own rights. They are not attacking anyone. So feminism shouldn't be seen as an attack on masculinity, but it should be only seen as an emancipation of women. And it should try to do that. It's about mitigating the differences and working for the betterment of both men and women. And then unequal pay is something that is to be considered. So women should say no to lesser paid jobs. That is one thing that they can stand for themselves when you are negotiating for your pay, because most of the time in private sectors you negotiate for your pay. So you shouldn't take lower pays, because again, when you do that, you allow people to subjugate you. So you shouldn't allow that to yourself. And then companies should also rethink about why they are paying women lesser. Then family duties, we have already talked about that. And so there are certain laws also. Women should be aware of their rights and laws. So there is this sexual harassment and prevention of that is prevention, prohibition, and redressal. So this is very important. This act came in 2013. So it didn't came very early. It came in 2013. But this act allows women all protection against sexual harassment. And then in 2016, there was maternity benefit amendment. So that also came in 2016. So we think that we have, when we talk about things, we get a lot of benefits also. So keep talking about it is also very important. When people say, why you're just talking about it, not giving solutions. Solutions will come up when we first talk about it, because it's mothering is your job, kitchen is your space. So even if a woman and a man both are working on the same job, a woman has to come and cook food. She has to give tea to everyone. So these kinds of things will happen in your home. That will not happen in your workspace, right? So you have to talk about it. You have to negotiate things, and you have to keep your foot down at certain times. So these things will come only when you speak about it. If you don't never speak out, it will never happen. So speaking is also very important. Making your point very clear and in a very organized way. If you can make your point, that is also very important. And then you don't have to be afraid of anything. If you are right, you are right. So again, women in night shift. This is something very important. If you have, there was one study, and it was thought if there are more women outside at night, women will feel safer at night. So instead of imposing a curfew hour or something like that, what we can aim at is like there are more women outside even during the night time. So if there are everyone is out there, everyone will feel safe. And then women can take more shifts at that time, because day hours are thought safe, by night hours are thought unsafe. So we have to take care of that also. We have to take care about women's safety. And we also need to again, there should be in schools and in public places and in public forums, men should be also taught about women's needs and how you can keep them safe, because it's both ways. So when you want it to happen, when you want the change to happen, you have to talk about it. You have to, most of the public forums, when they work, what they do, they make ads, they make things like that. They write pamphlets and do things that people come to know about it. It's like an awareness. So there should be an awareness that why women are lesser in the work forum. So this awareness should be spread. So that's all that I need to say. If there are any questions, you can please take it up.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, there are a lot of questions.
Okay.
And I would like to address them to you.
Yes.
One of the question is, even the well-educated men have the attitude that a good woman is the one who keeps quiet, even when she's right. So they don't voice themselves. So he's asking that why is it that women are so tolerant and that they do not cross-question?
These are actually, your question is self-answering also, which has been for so long. See, you cannot make a change in one day. So for years you have seen your mothers working, You have seen them working in such difficult circumstances. So when it comes, when you are a husband, you always compare your wife to your mother. My mother went through so much hardships. So you have to, but you don't have to go through the same hardships. If somebody before you has gone through the same hardship, you can make the life easier for the other generations. That is what we are aiming at. So anything that is holistic, anything that is sustainable is always better for everyone, and it is supporting for everyone. So I think it's more about things that we actually not talking and about tolerating. When women tend to tolerate too much, the more you tolerate, the more people don't understand, because when you're not speaking up, how will somebody understand that what you are going through? And I think most women should speak up. Actually, what happens, other women become examples. Like if somebody is, I've talked about, if somebody wakes up at 5 or 6 and then works the whole night, she becomes an example. Look at her, she's working so much. Why cannot you do? So somehow or the other, the good women are trying. I would keep it under some kind of inverted commas. That being a good woman also has a lot of impact, because if you're being too good, you're also giving a kind of you are becoming an ideal. But that ideal worship or idol worship, you shouldn't do that, because actually you have to keep yourself healthy also. Your body, somewhere I was reading, your body is your power. Like we talk about knowledge is power, your healthy body is also your power. So if you are not healthy, if you are ailing, how can you take care of yourself? And women are facing hormonal issues, diabetes, thyroid. All of these are lifestyle disorders, because you don't have time for yourself, because you cannot get time for yourself. So you will naturally suffer from lifestyle disorders. So you have to think about that why you have to agree to everything. You have to disagree, and not all the time, but most of the time you can disagree with the thing that you think is not going well for you, and you have to look for ways out. Any other question? I think the question is difficult because it has, things have to change at a grassroots level. So a lot has to be done. We have to negotiate the boundaries.
Yes, ma'am, there is one other question, and this question is asking about the condition of homemakers, because it has
Yes,
been told that you're only talking about working women. What about the situation of homemakers and their
yes.
economic status, as they don't have any pay?
Actually, why I was not, I actually kept only to women, and women in higher education and women in higher levels, was that if I talk about everything, it will take a whole day, maybe 2 days, 3 days, and it won't end, because it is so layered. Everything is so layered. Homemakers have a very difficult position. I think it is there on your pamphlet of the seminar, that if a woman has to write, she needs certain money, she needs certain space, right? Virginia Woolf said that. So working women's life are more difficult because you have no financial independence. And financial independence is one thing that all women should strive for. If in whatever skill set you have, make your own startups, do a local business, whatever you can do, teach tuitions, but have your own money. That is something which I strongly believe in, because when you don't have your own money, people can subjugate you. And most of the time, women who are homemakers, they cannot walk out of their family because they have nowhere to go. So that is also a very difficult thing for a woman. So I understand the problems of a homemaker, but it was a deliberate thing that I was not talking about them. Already a lot has been talked about them. So I kept it to working women.
Okay, ma'am, there is one more question. And it has been asked that why people always think that women alone cannot do anything. So they always need a support of someone.
See, again, this point has many things about it. First, everyone needs a support, be it a man or a woman. So I think that when we try to do everything by ourselves, that is also kind of problematic. That is problematic at various levels. So a woman can be independent, and then she can take the support of the family. That's why I said it's not a problem if you are asking for help. Ask for help, ask for support. That shouldn't be a problem. You should ask for help and support. Being independent doesn't mean that you don't need support. Everyone needs some kind of support. We need friends, we need bonding, we need family. You cannot break those systems. So it's not about breaking the systems, it's about working holistically in the system. And women can do things independently. Yes, sometimes the concerns are about safety. And because when you see so many problems of rape and other things happening in your society, actually people are concerned, families are also concerned. So this is more about concern for your safety, I think, because you have to think from both perspective when you're talking about mitigating things or accepting roles. It's also about understanding the other perspective. So you shouldn't feel that your boundaries are being blurred or you're not being given space. Yes, but not your necessary. You should get your necessary space. So if you are not getting that, you have to speak for that. But if it is about your safety or some other concerns, or if you need someone to walk with you, that shouldn't be a problem. Female bonding is also important. So women, if they feel unsafe in a certain place, they should make groups. 4 or 5 girls, if they're walking, nobody will try to attack them. So in that way, you have to be kind of that is being wise, actually. So you don't in trying to break everything, you shouldn't become foolish or naive, or don't go for self-hurt. So you have to protect yourself, and then you have to work. So that is important. Again, you can, of course, women are independent. Mansplaining will happen. Again, that thing will happen, that people will say people will put you down. But that, if you are a very strong woman, that will hardly affect you. Any other question? I hope all the doubts are clear.
Am I audible?
Yes, now you're audible.
Yes, ma'am. I was just saying that your PPT is very interestingly made, and I just wanted you to go through these terms that you have presented here, so that we can be familiar with what the terms are here basically meaning. You already talked about glass ceilings and glass walls and glass elevator. So even if we skip this slide, maybe from the next slide and beyond, sticky floors.
Yes, and sticky floor is again something that we take low mobility jobs. You cannot move. That we talked about it. And we would keep to clerical jobs, administrative, not many jobs which are very adventurous. We won't go for that.
Here is this gynobibliophobia.
Yes, this is the fear of female authors. I discussed it in a very, I didn't take much time explaining it, but we talked about some portions of it, that why we are afraid of women's writing. Biblio is book, gyno is women. So there is a fear of women's writing, kind of. So, and that happens even in academics. You will see that the works of women writers, they are put into a particular category, women writing. So perhaps because they are not actually put into they should be a part of the writing itself. Why? Because most of the time we are reading Robert Browning, we are not reading Elizabeth Barrett Browning in syllabus, in BHU syllabus I'm talking about. Or we are reading Hugh Walker, we are not reading Sylvia Plath. And if we are reading women authors, we are reading it in a segregated column as women writings, as if women are different or other. So the othering is done very strategically. So as if women writing is something inferior. And that's the reason why George Eliot was writing with the name George Eliot. People were taking male names, and they are doing even today. Even an author who has got so much popularity with Harry Potter, when she's writing her second series, she is trying to take a male pseudonym. So that is something that women have to think about, that why their works are being undermined. Because women, when they're speaking about themselves, people are denying to listen to them also. And there is an interesting thing that Chimamanda Adichie said. She said that when the moment I'm introduced in any forum, they call me, she's a Black African feminist. That is how they introduce her, or women writer. So she says, I'm more beyond that. Why don't you just call me an author? That would give me more authority. Or why don't you call me a writer instead of putting all those kind of secondary places, like you are a Black woman, you are an African woman, you are a woman writer. So this kind of thing is also stereotyping. When you put women author in the category of women author, there are other dimensions of writing is also lost. So, there is a crippling that is done on gender. There's stereotyping, labeling that is done on the basis of gender. So they don't get their due credit, actually. Misogyny is always there. Mansplaining is there.
And other things we have already discussed at length.
Yes, yes.
So I think that would be all.
Yes. Thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity. A very well organized seminar. Thank you, Dr. Vinamrita and Dr. Lalit Verma. Thanks a lot. And thanks to MSKV College. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would hand over the mic to Dr. Lalit Verma to continue with the rest of the proceedings of the seminar.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Such an enlightening and engrossing lecture. That was really a pleasure, a real great pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
So ably explained, and such, unusual terms. We're not very much familiar with all such things: glass ceilings, glass wall, glass escalator, etc. And it was really a pleasure, I must say. And we were enlightened, and thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.
We'll now move on to our going forward with our presentation. We will be now, engaging our next guest speaker.
Hello. Am I audible to you, ma'am?
You welcome you, ma'am. Just a minute. Yes, we're back. We are welcoming Dr. Amisha Gupta, who is an assistant professor at Department of Economics, Banaras Hindu University. She has completed her master's and her PhD from Banaras Hindu University, and she has been teaching and has research experience of more than 7 years. Her current research interest focuses on industrial economics and microfinance. Ma'am, we heartily welcome you to deliver your speech on our topic today in the second day of the international seminar. Welcome, ma'am. You can go ahead. your lecture.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Wait for a second. Okay. Thanks. Thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity, organizers. Today, I would like to talk about gender inequality and globalization. Ma'am, I am unable to share my PPT. Can you please enable it?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Please share it in WhatsApp to ma'am.
Okay. Can I mail it?
Mail it? Yes, ma'am.
Because I'm finding some kind of
Okay, no
problem
problem.
here. No, WhatsApp is working. I have just WhatsApp you
Okay, fine.
to Ritu ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, we'll do.
Ma'am, am I visible? Because I think my camera is quite not working.
Yes, ma'am, you're visible.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am. Is the video on? We can only see a screen, you know. Hello, ma'am. Is the video on? We can only see a screen. Hello, Amisha, ma'am. Yeah. Yes, ma'am, we're ready. You can start. Yes, ma'am. We are ready with your slides. Please start.
Okay. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, yes. Please do, ma'am.
Okay. And see, I can see my video also. Okay, thank you. So, thank you, ma'am. And I will like to start my topic with globalization and gender inequality. Here, I have been told also that the most of the audience here is from Hindi medium, so I would like to be in bilingual mode.
Yeah, yeah.
Second thing is that if we talk about globalization, globalization is simply you can say that globalization is interdependency of the world economies in terms of trade relation, in terms of culture, in terms of you can say uh, export import, cultural events, many things are there. Means ग्लोबलाइजेशन का मतलब है कि हम एक साथ वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमी को किस तरह से डिफरेंट इकोनॉमीज ऑफ द वर्ल्ड को किस तरह से हम कनेक्ट करते हैं. तो इससे क्या समझ में आता है कि ग्लोबलाइजेशन इज गोइंग टू लीड टुवर्ड्स द इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट एंड इफ द ग्लोबलाइजेशन लीड्स फॉर इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट दैट मीन्स कि कहीं ना कहीं ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट की तरफ हम बढ़ रहे हैं. तो इससे परसेप्शन यही ड्रॉ होता है कि अगर ग्लोबलाइजेशन है तो इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट है. दैट मीन्स वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट डेवलपमेंट ऑफ द ऑल. दैट मीन्स इफ यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट डेवलपमेंट ऑफ ऑल, यानी कि यहाँ पर ये चीज हो रहा है कि जितनी भी आपकी इकोनॉमी में लोग हैं सबका डेवलपमेंट हो रहा है. दैट मीन्स हाफ ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन दैट इज विमेन दे आर ऑल्सो बीइंग डेवलप्ड ऑल्सो. Ma'am, can we have the second slide, please? Ma'am, can we have second slide, please? Right arrow. Ma'am, right arrow.
Yes, ma'am.
ओके मैम, उसको स्लाइड शो पे ही डायरेक्ट क्लिक करिए तो पूरा बड़े में अच्छे से आ जाएगा फिर वो.
It is
मैम नीचे एक F5 आइदर क्लिक F5 और नीचे एक सॉकर का शेप होगा उसको क्लिक करेंगे आप हो जाएगा. F5.
पे आ रहा है मैम.
मैम कंप्लीट नहीं, वो साइड में स्लाइड्स भी पूरे दिख रहे हैं, पूरा स्क्रीन नहीं आ रहा है. मीन्स स्लाइड शो में नहीं है. मैम यू हैव टू क्लिक F5.
We have. We will try once again.
या मैम ऊपर फर्स्ट सेकंड थर्ड फोर्थ फिफ्थ नंबर पे स्लाइड शो लिखा है उस पर क्लिक कर दें, आ जाएगा स्लाइड शो. मैम अगर आप मुझे अनेबल कर देते तो मैं खुद ही स्क्रीन शेयर कर लेती.
इनको एंड कर. विनम्रता मैम.
Shall I start, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, you can start. Actually, I don't, I'm unable to find the.
कोई बात नहीं मैम, कोई बात नहीं. ओके,
just
सो
select.
बस मैम उसको स्लाइड आप जब मैं बोलूँ नेक्स्ट तो प्लीज उसको स्लाइड डाउन कर दीजिएगा, ठीक है? थैंक यू. ओके, सो okay, so we were talking about gender inequality, and here what we are talking about, gender inequality, that means that inequality means that the lack of equal opportunities of men and women, right? That means कि जो मेल और फीमेल हैं उनको इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटीज नहीं दी जाती. एक तरफ हम बात कर रहे हैं, नारे दिए जा रहे हैं बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ के, लेकिन वहीं और दूसरी तरफ हम क्या देखते हैं, चाहे वो छोटे लेवल पे स्कूल टाइम पे देखें या फिर हम वर्क प्लेस पे देख लें, दोनों तरफ पे जो पेट्रियार्कियल आपकी थॉट है वो कहीं ना कहीं इफेक्टिव रहती है. अगर हम बात करते हैं स्कूल एजुकेशन पे, तो कभी भी ये ध्यान दिया जाता है कि आपके अप टू 10th एंड 12th हमेशा अगर आपकी रैंकिंग की बात आती है या बात आती है कि ज्यादा नंबर ऑफ पास आउट्स किसके हुए हैं या ज्यादा अच्छे स्कोर्स किसके आ रहे हैं, तो वो फीमेल्स के नजर आते हैं. लेकिन वही जब हम हायर एजुकेशन की तरफ बढ़ते हैं, स्पेशली इफ वी टॉकिंग अबाउट टेक्निकल एजुकेशन, देन व्हाट वी फाउंड कि यहाँ पर फिर फीमेल्स का जो रेशियो है वो काफी हद तक लो हो जाता है. दैट मीन्स कि अपर मिडिल क्लास और आपके जो हायर इनकम ग्रुप वाले होते हैं, सिर्फ वही ज्यादा से ज्यादा इस चीज को कर रहे हैं. यहाँ पर ये मतलब नहीं है कि उनकी इनकम यहाँ पर एक कह सकते हैं कि कैटलिस्ट की तरह काम करती है. यहाँ पर इनकम का रोल बिल्कुल भी उतना ज्यादा नहीं होता है, बल्कि यहाँ पर ये आपकी पेट्रियार्कियल थॉट का रोल ज्यादा हो जाता है. दैट मीन्स कि आज भी जो बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ की हम बात कर रहे हैं, लेकिन फिर भी दूसरी तरफ ये भी रहता है कि अगर हम बेटी को ज्यादा पढ़ाएंगे, वो कितना भी इनकम अर्न करेगी तो वो जब भी जाएगी वो अपने इन लॉज के यहाँ उस चीज को लेकर के जाएगी, हमें उस अर्निंग में से कुछ भी ज्यादा नहीं मिलेगा. वहीं अगर हम बात करते हैं लड़कों की, तो लड़कों के लिए ये कहा जाता है कि जितना भी उसको अच्छे से खर्च करेंगे, जितना नरिशमेंट से लेकर जितनी सारी चीजें उसको प्रोवाइड करेंगे, अच्छी एजुकेशन, ये सारी चीजें वो एक तरह से वापस लौट के उनके पास ही आएगी, उनकी ओल्ड एज में काफी हेल्प होगी. तो इस तरीके की ये जो हमारी थॉट, पेट्रियार्कल थॉट चल रही है, ये आपकी जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी को काफी ज्यादा यहाँ पर इंक्रीज करती है. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज. सेकेंड चीज यहाँ पर क्या आती है, नेक्स्ट यहाँ पे जो आपके अगर इसको डिफाइन करने की बात की जाए, तो इनइक्वालिटी सिर्फ आपकी अगर जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी की हम बात कर रहे हैं, दैट डजंट मीन अबाउट एजुकेशन एंड नरिशमेंट ओनली. यहाँ पर बात होती है अनइक्वल एक्सेस टू हायर एजुकेशन, प्रोफेशनल ट्रेनिंग्स, प्रोफेशनल इनइक्वालिटी इन सर्टेन ऑक्यूपेशंस, और यू कैन से दैट ओनरशिप ऑफ असेट्स एंड इनइक्वालिटी विद इन द डिसीजन मेकिंग इन हाउस होल्ड ऑल्सो. मीन्स कभी भी डिसीजन मेकिंग की भी जब बात आती है तो विमेन से इतना ज्यादा नहीं पूछा जाता, बजाय जितना आपके मेन से आपकी चीजों को पूछा जाता है. तो यहाँ पर एक जो डिसीजन मेकिंग पावर है वो भी काफी हद तक यहाँ पर इनइक्वालिटी को शो करती है, यानी कि विमेन के पास एक इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटी तक नहीं होती है कि वो किसी भी अपने अपने घर में जो डिसीजन मेकिंग चीजें, जो भी जहाँ पे डिसीजन लेना है, उसमें एक इक्वल कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन वो प्रॉपर तरीके से प्रोवाइड कर सके. ये हुआ हमारा जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी. सेकेंड चीज क्या आती है, ग्लोबलाइजेशन. इफ यू टॉक अबाउट ग्लोबलाइजेशन, ग्लोबलाइजेशन मीन्स दैट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट interlinking, or you can say interdependence of different economies into a combined way, right? And what we can say that if that there is a globalization, that means that is leading to economic development of nations. Means यहाँ पर इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट भी होते चल रहा है अगर हम ग्लोबलाइजेशन की बात कर रहे हैं, वायर ट्रेड, वायर कल्चरल इंटरेक्शंस एंड अदर थिंग्स ऑल्सो. बट यहाँ पर एक चीज आती है कि अगर ग्लोबलाइजेशन है, दैट मीन्स इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट है. दैट मीन्स यहाँ से ये रिजल्ट हम कंक्लूड कर सकते हैं कि जब इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट हो रहा है बिकॉज ऑफ ग्लोबलाइजेशन, दैट मीन्स कि यहाँ पर अब ज्यादा से ज्यादा आपकी इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटीज मेल एंड फीमेल को मिल रही होगी. यानी कि we can say that globalization has posed a major challenge to this institution of patriarchal thought in India, especially, right? Means it has opened certain kind of job opportunities, or you can say that employment opportunities for women. Women के लिए इतनी employment opportunities और साथ ही साथ यहाँ पर अपने rights के लिए खड़े होना, बहुत तरीके की opportunities यहाँ पर globalization ने यहाँ पर दी है. Means you can say that because of globalization, role of women has been increased. But यहाँ पर क्या ग्लोबलाइजेशन इस जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी को रिड्यूस करने में हेल्पफुल कहीं से भी रहा है? तो इसका जवाब आता है नहीं. And since I'm a student of economics, we can say, or you can say, I will use some kind of data in order to bring about these facts which I have said earlier, right? So यहाँ पर क्या चीज है? If we are talking about gender inequality, means अगर जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी बहुत ज्यादा होती जाएगी, दैट मीन्स कि चाइल्ड मैरिज बहुत बढ़ता जाएगा, टीनेज प्रेगनेंसी काफी इंक्रीज होगी, चाइल्ड डोमेस्टिक वर्क इंक्रीज होगा, पुअर एजुकेशन होगी, पुअर हेल्थ हो जाएगा, डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस आपका इंक्रीज हो जाएगा, विमेन एक्सप्लॉयटेशन बहुत बुरी तरह से इंक्रीज होगा, एंड दीज आर सर्टेन काइंड ऑफ कंसिक्वेंसेस ऑफ इंक्रीज इन जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी. अगर जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी ऐसे ही बढ़ते रहेगी तो ये सारी चीजें होनी ही होनी है. एंड one of the 17 major goals of sustainable development goals is gender inequality, or you can say the goal 5th of UN sustainable development goal is gender equality, right? If we are talking about gender equality, that means ki women and men both should be given the same opportunity to achieve each and everything. But what we have seen, according to, you can say, global gender gap index for 2002, which has been published by World Economic Forum, in which India ranked 135 out of 146 countries. What does that mean? कि 146 कंट्रीज में से आपकी रैंक अभी भी 135 है. दैट मीन्स कि अभी भी आप बहुत ज्यादा जेंडर गैप में पीछे हैं, यानी कि आपके यहाँ जेंडर गैप बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ते जा रहा है, और इसको अगर कर्व नहीं किया गया तो ये बहुत बड़ी आपके लिए प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट कर सकती है. क्यों? क्योंकि 50% ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन इज ऑफ फीमेल, और अगर पॉपुलेशन का एक आधा हिस्सा अगर आपका डिग्रेड होता जाएगा तो कहीं ना कहीं ये आपके इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट, ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट, सब पे ये एक थ्रेट की तरह पोज करेगा ही करेगा. तो यहाँ पर सबसे पहले ये जो वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमिक फोरम ने ये जो आपकी ग्लोबल जेंडर गैप को बताया है, इसमें इन्होंने 4 इंडिकेटर्स लिए हैं. इन्हीं इंडिकेटर्स के थ्रू इस जेंडर गैप को मैं यहाँ पर एक्सप्लेन करूंगी. ठीक, सबसे पहला इन्होंने जो लिया है दैट इज इकोनॉमिक पार्टिसिपेशन एंड अपॉर्चुनिटी. मैम काइंडली प्लीज स्लाइड डाउन. I think 6th slide. If we talk about economic participation of the participation and opportunities, that means we are talking about the percentage of women in labor force, and according to periodic labor force survey, 32.8% are females are in labor force. Means यहाँ हम बात कर रहे हैं 50% की, लेकिन अभी भी 32.8% ही यहाँ पर आपकी लेबर फोर्स में यहाँ पर ज्वाइन करते हैं. सेकेंड चीज यहाँ पर क्या है? इक्वालिटी फॉर सिमिलर वर्क. यहाँ पर कई बार ऐसा भी देखा गया है कि किसी जगह पर मान लेते हैं 2 मेल पर्सन काम कर रहे हैं, लेकिन जैसे ही आप किसी दूसरे को उनकी जगह पे हायर करेंगे तो उस जगह पर क्या देखने में मिलता है कि आप मेल तो अगर फीमेल को हायर कर रहे हैं, यू विल हायर अ सिंगल पर्सन, मीन्स सिंगल फीमेल को आप हायर कर रहे हैं, सिंगल वीमेन को आप हायर कर रहे हैं इन कंपैरिजन टू 2 मेल्स. क्यों? क्योंकि वीमेन सिंसियर होती हैं, वीमेन हार्ड वर्किंग होती हैं, उनसे आप इतना काम करा सकते हैं. दैट मीन्स यू आर नॉट प्रोवाइडिंग इक्वल पे फॉर इक्वल वर्क, right? And because of that, you can say that India has slipped down, or you can say in this particular report of the global gender gap, you can see that India ranks a lowly 143 out of 146 countries in terms of economic participation and opportunity. यहाँ पर क्लियर देखने में मिल रहा है कि इंडिया से नीचे बस आपके कुछ ही देश हैं, जैसे ईरान, पाकिस्तान, अफगानिस्तान, बस. बाकी सारी देश क्या है? इंडिया से ऊपर ही हैं आउट ऑफ 146 कंट्रीज. तो यहाँ पर क्या देखने मिल रहा है कि अभी भी यहाँ पर इक्वल पे फॉर इक्वल वर्क वाली चीजें देखने में प्रॉपर तरीके से नहीं मिल रही हैं. और एक रिपोर्ट के अकॉर्डिंग ये भी देखा गया है कि यहाँ पर जो आपके कह सकते हैं जो वर्क प्लेस है, वर्क प्लेस पे स्टिल विमेन लेस वेज आपके रिसीव करती हैं इन कंपैरिजन टू देयर मेल काउंटर पार्ट्स. और कई रिपोर्ट्स में ये भी देखा गया है कि जैसे 60 आपकी जो मेल वर्कर्स हैं वो यहाँ पर उनके कंपैरिजन में एम्प्लॉयमेंट भी विमेन का कम है, और साथ ही साथ अगर वो एम्प्लॉयड हैं तो यहाँ पर जो वर्क है वो उनको ज्यादा मिलता है. रीजंस इसके क्या क्या हो सकते हैं? इफ वी टॉक अबाउट रीजंस, देन सबसे पहला रीजन ये होता है अनपेड केयर, यानी कि विमेन का जो पार्टिसिपेशन है आपके वर्कफोर्स में, उसका एक मेजर रीजन होता है अनपेड केयर। अनपेड केयर इन द सेंस दैट अगर घर में बच्चा है देन इट विल बी द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ मदर। फादर्स उतना यहाँ पर उसके लिए रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टेक करने के लिए रेडी नहीं होते हैं। यानी कि अगर हम यहाँ पर बात करें या हम यहाँ पे प्रॉपर तरीके से डेटा को ही अगर कोट करें तो ऑन अ सर्टेन एनालिसिस ऑफ 33 कंट्रीज, यहाँ पर जिसमें कि 54% आपकी वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन को लिया गया, वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमिक फोरम की दूसरी रिपोर्ट में यही देखा गया कि विमेन वर डूइंग ऑलमोस्ट 3 times एज मच अनपेड वर्क एज मेन, यानी कि मेन से वो ज्यादा 3 times ज्यादा वर्क करती हैं, वो भी अनपेड केयर की अगर हम बात करें। फॉर एन एग्जाम्पल, जैसे घर में इवन अगर आप नॉर्मल भी देख रहे हैं, जैसे 2 वर्किंग लोग हैं, मतलब आपके मेन एंड वीमेन दोनों अगर वर्किंग है, ऐसे में अगर घर में कोई भी कैजुअलिटी होती है तो रैदर फीमेल को ही यहाँ पर अपनी जॉब, अपना डे सेक्रीफाइस करके यहाँ पर रुकना पड़ता है। यहाँ पर अनपेड केयर मतलब सिर्फ आपके कह सकते हैं कि जो बच्चे होते हैं उनकी बात नहीं की जा रही है, यहाँ पे जो घर में आपके एल्डर पर्सन होते हैं उनकी भी केयरिंग की पूरी जिम्मेदारी विमेन की होती है। सेकेंड रीजन अपॉर्चुनिटी का क्या हो सकता है? सेकेंड रीजन यहाँ पर ये माना जाता है कि टाइनी इन्वेस्टमेंट मीन्स अगर विमेन स्टार्टअप्स भी इन कर रही हैं तो उनको यहाँ पर जो फंड रिक्वायर्ड है इन कंपैरिजन टू मेल, अभी भी डेटा यही बता रहा है कि वो यहाँ पर मेल के कंपैरिजन में स्टार्टअप्स के लिए अभी भी बहुत ज्यादा उनको मतलब इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए बहुत ज्यादा फीमेल्स अट्रैक्टेड नहीं है। मतलब कि अभी भी जो एक परसेंटेज, जैसे मेल का परसेंटेज आपने सुना होगा कि मेल इतने नए नए स्टार्टअप्स करते जा रहे हैं, लेकिन फीमेल का जो परसेंटेज देखने में मिल रहा है वो बहुत ज्यादा परसेंटेज आपका लो देखने में मिलता है। नेक्स्ट चीज इसमें जो रीजन आता है वो आता है आपका जेंडर गैप्स इन लीडरशिप। मीन्स अगर हम लीडरशिप की भी बात करते हैं डिफरेंट टाइप में, चाहे आपके वो आपके हायर अथॉरिटीज के टर्म्स में पब्लिक सेक्टर में देखें चाहे प्राइवेट सेक्टर में देखें, जो सीनियर और लीडरशिप सीनियर रोल्स या लीडरशिप रोल्स होते हैं मेनली यहाँ पर जो होते हैं वो मेल के ज्यादा परसेंटेज हैं। और एक आपकी ये जो ग्लोबल जेंडर गैप रिपोर्ट है, इसके अकॉर्डिंग विमेन का शेयर जो है सीनियर और लीडरशिप रोल्स में वो आपका कंसिस्टेंट है एक तरह से 2017 से 2022 के बीच में, दैट इज 42% ओनली। तो ये सारे रीजंस हैं जिनकी वजह से जो हमारी इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटी है, या हम कह सकते हैं यहाँ पर हमने जो देखा अभी कि यहाँ पे जो इकोनॉमिक पार्टिसिपेशन या अपॉर्चुनिटी होती है फीमेल की, वो यहाँ पर लो इसीलिए है जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ दीज 4 रीजंस। नेक्स्ट इंडिकेटर इज दैट एजुकेशनल अटेनमेंट। Why there is gender inequality? Because of the educational attainment also. What we have seen, जैसे पहले भी आपको बताया कि जब भी आपके 10th-12th के रिजल्ट आते हैं हर जगह आप देखेंगे फीमेल्स का ही टॉपर कौन हुआ, फीमेल्स। अगर टॉपर नहीं हुई तो एटलीस्ट नेक्स्ट स्टेप टॉप 7 to 8 आपकी फीमेल्स ही ज्यादा कंट्री करती हैं। तो अब यहाँ पर क्या निकल के आ रहा है कि आपके प्राइमरी एजुकेशन में फीमेल का है, और थैंक्स टू दिस सर्व शिक्षा अभियान बिकॉज ऑफ दैट यहाँ पर आपकी फीमेल पार्टिसिपेशन रेट इन प्राइमरी एजुकेशन काफी इंक्रीज हुआ और विमेन वहां से फीमेल्स जो है बहुत अच्छा कर रही हैं। लेकिन जैसे ही हम हायर एजुकेशन की बात करते हैं, ये जो आपकी ग्लोबल जेंडर गैप है उसके अकॉर्डिंग इंडिया का रैंक 107th है आउट ऑफ 146 कंट्रीज। दैट मीन्स कि इंडिया अभी भी बहुत ज्यादा यहाँ पर अचीव नहीं कर पाई है। हमने प्राइमरी एजुकेशन में तो अचीव किया, लेकिन जो हमारी हायर एजुकेशन है, हायर एजुकेशन उस टर्म्स में यहाँ पर हम अचीव वो सारी चीजें नहीं कर पाए हैं। रीजन क्या आते हैं? सबसे पहला रीजन यहाँ पर यही आता है आपका पेट्रियार्कल सिस्टम। पेट्रियार्कल सिस्टम यानी कि जेंडर बायसनेस, यानी कि लड़की है अगर तो क्या करने को लड़की को ये फैसिलिटीज दी जाए, ये फैसिलिटीज पहले लड़के को मिलनी चाहिए। ऐसा नहीं होता है कि घर में आपके लड़का लड़की है तो दोनों को इक्वल ट्रीटमेंट यहाँ पे दिया जाए। आज भी कहीं ना कहीं बहुत सारी चीजों में पेट्रियार्कल थॉट जो है वो हमारा इंक्लूडेड है, लेकिन सिर्फ पेट्रियार्कल थॉट या पेट्रियार्कल सिस्टम इसके लिए जिम्मेदार नहीं है जेंडर बायसनेस के लिए। सेकेंड चीज यहाँ पर क्या आती है? सेकेंड चीज यहाँ पर ये आती है, पेट्रियार्कल थॉट से अगर हम रिलेट करें तो पेरेंट्स क्या करते हैं कि फीमेल की जब आपकी कह सकते हैं मैरिज अगर करनी है, डॉटर्स की मैरिज करनी है, तो दे वांट सम काइंड ऑफ कलेक्शन ऑफ डाउरी एंड दे वांट सर्टेन काइंड ऑफ कलेक्शन ऑफ रुपीज इन ऑर्डर टू स्पेंड ऑन देयर मैरिज इन अ वेल लेविश तरीके से। ठीक, तो इसलिए वो चाहते हैं कि अगर पैसे खर्च ही करने हैं तो फिर उनकी शादी पे खर्च किए जाए रादर देन ऑन देयर एजुकेशन। सेकेंड चीज यहाँ देखने में मिलती है कि इन कंपैरिजन टू अर्बन एरिया, रूरल एरिया में यहाँ पर स्टिल वी आर लैकिंग इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर। Not only patriarchal thought is responsible for this lack of education attainment, here the infrastructural growth is also lagging behind. That means कि यहाँ पर हम देखते हैं जैसे अगर कॉलेज फैसिलिटीज हैं, मान लीजिए स्कूल में आपके किसी गांव में अगर हायर एजुकेशन का कोई कॉलेज भी है, 15 टीचर की जरूरत है, 5 टीचर का अपॉइंटमेंट करके रखा है। 10 टीचर की जरूरत है, वहां पे 2 टीचर्स आपके रखे हुए हैं। नॉन टीचिंग स्टाफ है ही नहीं। मतलब यहाँ पर क्या किया जा रहा है कि अगर जो आपको प्रॉपर तरीके से जो चीजें होनी चाहिए, फॉर एन एग्जाम्पल यहाँ क्या सोचा जाता है, टीचर तो किसी काम के होते नहीं है, उनको बस आना है, बुक से रीडिंग लगवानी है, काम हो जाएगा। ऐसा नहीं होता है। ट्रेन टीचर्स की प्रॉपर, या हम कह सकते हैं स्किल टीच, हायर एजुकेशन के लिए स्किल टीचर्स या ट्रेन टीचर्स की जरूरत होती है इन ऑर्डर टू हैव ग्रोथ। ठीक, और इसके लिए हमें प्रॉपर तरीके से पहले क्या चाहिए, हायर एजुकेशन के लिए टीचर्स को कभी भी नॉन टीचिंग काम से पूरी तरह से फ्री करना है। और खास तौर से ऐसी जगहों पे इवन आपके हायर एजुकेशन में भी ये देखा गया है कि नॉन टीचिंग स्टाफ से भी उतना काम नहीं लिया जाता जितना फीमेल स्टाफ से आपके हायर एजुकेशन में यहाँ पे प्रॉपर तरीके से लिया जा रहा है। अगर फीमेल टीचर है दैट मीन्स कि शी इज फीमेल, शी इज सिंसियर, शी हैज गुड हैंड राइटिंग, शी कैन डू वेरी वेल इन थिंग्स। तो क्या करना है, सारा काम उसी से करा लीजिए। और क्या करना है, अरे आप तो फीमेल है, आपको तो और कुछ करना नहीं, आप पहले यही काम कर दीजिए। मेल क्या करेंगे, वहां से आपकी रहेंगे भी तो भी उनसे काम उतना नहीं लिया जाएगा। तो ये सारी चीजें आती हैं। थर्ड थिंग यहाँ पर क्या आती है, सेफ्टी एंड सिक्योरिटी। एजुकेशनल अटेनमेंट में सेफ्टी एंड सिक्योरिटी भी बहुत मैटर करती है फीमेल की। जब तक लड़कियां छोटी होती हैं आप भेजते हैं, लेकिन जब बड़े एजुकेशन या हायर एजुकेशन के लिए आपको गांव में या रूरल एरियाज में वो चीजें नहीं मिलती हैं, तो बहुत सारे पेरेंट्स अपनी सेफ्टी और सिक्योरिटी के पर्पज से उनको वहां पर भेजने के लिए तैयार नहीं होते हैं। और कई बार ये हाइजेनिक रीजंस और दूसरे रीजंस के कारण भी यहाँ पर प्रॉपर तरीके से उनको नहीं भेजा जाता है। तो इस जैसे कि कई बार होता है कि जो हायर एजुकेशन के इंस्टीट्यूट्स हैं, या आप कह सकते हैं कि गांव में ही जो आपके हैं, लैक ऑफ टॉयलेट, लैक ऑफ हाइजेनिक सिस्टम, सैनिटरी प्रॉपर नहीं रहती, ये सारी चीजें देखने में मिलती हैं, जिस वजह से एक बहुत बड़ा कारण होता है जो कि लोग अपने बच्चों को फिर दूर कहीं भेजने से डरते हैं। और दूसरा आपका जो सेक्स हरेसमेंट वाली चीजें चल रही हैं, उसकी वजह से भी लड़की है तो कुछ हो ना जाए बोल करके यहाँ पर ये सारी चीजों को इंक्लूड नहीं किया जाता। दैट मीन्स कि फीमेल्स को अभी भी हायर एजुकेशन को, खासतौर से रूरल एरिया में, आई एम कोटिंग अगेन एंड अगेन, कि रूरल एरिया में वहां भेजने से लोग डरते हैं कि दूसरी जगह जाएंगी लड़कियों के साथ किस तरह से बिहेवियर होगा, इसलिए इससे अच्छा है उनको पढ़ाओ ही मत। दैट्स वाई हायर एजुकेशन में उतनी चीजें देखने में नहीं मिल रही हैं। लास्ट चीज क्या आती है, इसका एक रीजन जो हायर एजुकेशन अटेनमेंट की बात कर रहे हैं, जैसे हमने एग्जांपल दिया कि टेक्निकल एजुकेशन में बेसिकली जो विमेन है उनका पार्टिसिपेशन हायर एजुकेशन में काफी कम देखने में मिलता है। इसका एक वन ऑफ द मेजर रीजन ये भी हो सकता है कि बहुत सारे सब्जेक्ट्स जो हैं वो आपके मैस्कुलिन और फेमिनिन डिसिप्लिन के बेसिस पे डिवाइड ऑलरेडी हो चुके हैं। अगर फीमेल है तो उसको आर्ट्स, कॉमर्स, इस तरीके के सब्जेक्ट लेने, पेंटिंग, इस तरीके के सब्जेक्ट्स पढ़ने चाहिए। वहीं अगर मेल है तो उसको साइंस और उसमें टेक्नोलॉजी जो वो चीजें हैं वो सारी चीजें उसको यहाँ पर पढ़नी चाहिए। ये सारी चीजें यहाँ पर आती हैं। थर्ड इंडिकेटर हमारा जो होता है, यानी कि इतने पूरे रीजंस के बेसिस पे वी कैन कंक्लूड कि यहाँ पर जो हमारी कह सकते हैं कि जो एजुकेशनल अटेनमेंट है वो आज भी इतना कम क्यों है, जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ दीज रीजंस। नेक्स्ट चीज क्या आती है, हेल्थ एंड सर्वाइवल। इफ यू टॉक अबाउट हेल्थ एंड सर्वाइवल, तो इंडिया आउट ऑफ 146 कंट्रीज, इंडिया की रैंक है 146। दैट मीन्स इंडिया सबसे इस वक्त वर्स कंडीशन में इस वक्त हेल्थ एंड सर्वाइवल ग्लोबल लेवल पर यहाँ पर अकॉर्डिंग टू वर्ल्ड जेंडर गैप इंडेक्स के अकॉर्डिंग इसकी रैंक 146 है। ऐसा नहीं कि इंडिया यहाँ पर कुछ कर नहीं रही है, लेकिन जब वर्ल्ड के हम टर्मिनोलॉजी में देखते हैं तो वहां पर आज भी चीज हमें देखने मिल रही है कि जो हमारी कह सकते हैं कि जैसे बहुत सारे इंडिकेटर्स, जैसे एक्सेस टू मास मीडिया, एक्सेस टू लिटरेसी, एक्सेस टू सोशल वेलबींग, इन सारे कारणों से आज भी यहाँ पर जो हेल्थ सर्वाइवल है वो इंडिया का बहुत ज्यादा कम है। और इसी वजह से यहाँ पे जेंडर गैप जो आ रहा है यहाँ पर 146 यहाँ पर देखने में मिलता है। अब केवल यहाँ पर ये देखने मिल रहा है कि जेंडर गैप हमारा बहुत ज्यादा कम है, लेकिन दूसरी तरफ ये भी देखने मिल रहा है कि ग्लोबल लेवल पे तो ये है, लेकिन इंडिया के लेवल पे जब हम देखते हैं तो हमने बहुत सारी चीजें अचीव की हैं। जैसे अगर हम बात करते हैं मैटरनल मोर्टालिटी रेट की, यानी कि मातृ मृत्यु दर, तो आज के डेट में 70 प्रति लाख जीवित जन्म दरों पे इसको अचीव किया हुआ है। दैट मीन्स 70 पर लाख लाइफ बर्थ पे हमने इसको 75 पर लाख लाइफ बर्थ को अचीव कर लिया है, और बाय 2030 हमें ये 70 पर लाख तक अचीव करना है। दैट मीन्स कि हम यहाँ पे प्रोग्रेस कर रहे हैं, लेकिन स्टिल अभी भी बहुत सारी जगहों पे जैसे आपकी योजनाएं तो ला दी गई हैं, लेकिन वो कितनी जगह पे एक्सेसिबल हैं, कितना लोग उसको यूज कर पा रहे हैं। जैसे नंबर ऑफ विजिट्स ऑफ मेल और फीमेल ही अगर आप हॉस्पिटल में देखें तो फीमेल की विजिट्स उतनी ज्यादा नहीं हो पाती हैं बिकॉज ऑफ सर्टेन रीजंस, और मेल की विजिट्स आपकी ज्यादा रहती हैं इन कंपैरिजन टू फीमेल। तो यहाँ पर मेन रीजन ये जो आपके कह सकते हैं हेल्थ का आ रहा है, यानी कि हेल्थ सर्वाइवल में इंडिया अभी भी सबसे नीचे क्यों है इन कंट्रीज के बीच में। सबसे पहले इसका रीजन यही है कि फीमेल्स की अभी भी अनहाइजीनिक सराउंडिंग्स है, यानी कि अगर आपकी हम कह सकते हैं जो फीमेल की कह सकते हैं जो पीरियड्स वगैरह की जैसे प्रॉब्लम है, तो उस टाइम पे जो उनको हाइजीनिक सराउंडिंग्स प्रोवाइड करनी चाहिए वो हाइजीनिक सराउंडिंग उनको प्रॉपर तरीके से नहीं होती हैं। प्लस स्ट्रक्चर हमारे इस तरह से बायोलॉजिकली हमें थोड़ी सी एक कह सकते हैं कि फीमेल को प्रॉपर तरीके से सैनिटेशन की रिक्वायरमेंट होती है, जो कि आज भी किया बहुत ज्यादा है, लेकिन अभी तक वो सारी चीजें अचीव हम नहीं कर पाए हैं। और विमेन आर प्रोन टू डिसीज सर्टेन, आप कह सकते हैं कि वो अनहेल्दी लाइवलीहुड के कारण भी ये सारी चीजें यहाँ पर देखने में मिलती हैं। नेक्स्ट जो इंडिकेटर या हम कह सकते हैं जो हमारा लास्ट इंडिकेटर है वो है पॉलिटिकल एम्पावरमेंट। आई एम स्टिल सीइंग दैट द स्लाइड इज stick on gender inequality and I have moved towards 14th slides, right? So next is political empowerment. पॉलिटिकल एम्पावरमेंट की अगर हम बात करें तो यहाँ पर इंडिया का रैंक बहुत अच्छा है। दैट मीन्स कि इसमें जो जेंडर गैप आपका ग्लोबल जेंडर गैप है उसमें इंडिया का रैंक है 48 आउट ऑफ 146 कंट्रीज। दैट मीन्स कि परसेंटेज ऑफ विमेन इन पार्लियामेंट एंड इन मिनिस्ट्रियल पोजीशंस वो काफी हद तक आपका इम्प्रूव हुआ है। और ये सिर्फ इंडिया का ही इम्प्रूव नहीं हुआ है बल्कि ग्लोबल लेवल पे भी ये देखा जा रहा है कि इम्प्रूव हुआ है। लेकिन जहां इंडिया का रैंक आपका 48 आ रहा है वहीं वर्ल्ड का जब हम देखते हैं तो वो 16.1% ही आता है। दैट मीन्स कि अभी भी जो जेंडर गैप वर्ल्ड में है वो प्रिवेलेंट है, वो बहुत ज्यादा आपका है। अब यहाँ पर इतने सारे यानी कि हम कह सकते हैं कि बिकॉज ऑफ हम ग्लोबलाइजेशन जहां हम एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे थे कि जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी हमारी बहुत ज्यादा रिड्यूस होनी चाहिए, लेकिन हम यहाँ पर क्या देख रहे हैं कि जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी हमारी रिड्यूस तो नहीं हुई है लेकिन आज भी काफी हद तक बनी हुई है। और एक एस्टिमेट के अकॉर्डिंग स्टिल वी नीड 132 ईयर्स इन ऑर्डर टू हैव 100% पैरिटी, यानी कि जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी कंप्लीटली अभी 132 ईयर्स लगेंगे उसको दूर होने में। तो यहाँ पर अब उस जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी को दूर करने के लिए इंडिया के लेवल पर हम क्या चीजें कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि एक तरफ हम जैसे हम कह सकते हैं कि हम जेंडर इक्वालिटी की बात करते हैं, हम बात कर रहे हैं बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ और नारे की बात कर रहे हैं, हम यहाँ पर एडोलेसेंट गर्ल्स के लिए डिफरेंट तरीके के हम स्कीम्स लेके आ रहे हैं। यहाँ पर हम देख रहे हैं कि ग्लोबलाइजेशन के कारण बहुत सारे घर के पेरेंट्स हैं वो अपने घर की विमेन को, अपने घर की फीमेल्स को, अपने घर की लड़कियों को ज्यादा अच्छे लेवल पे, यानी कि यहाँ केवल ये नहीं है कि वो आपके सिर्फ एजुकेशनल लेवल पे ही सीमित है, ये आपके ओलंपिक से लेकर स्पोर्ट्स से लेकर डिफरेंट एरियाज में भी है। लेकिन वहीं दूसरी तरफ हम क्या देख रहे हैं कि आज हमारे ओलंपिक गोल्ड मेडलिस्ट यहाँ पर बैठ करके स्ट्राइक कर रहे हैं इन ऑर्डर टू गेट द जस्टिस, राइट? तो ये सारी चीजें क्या है, ये सारी चीजें आपकी अभी भी दूर नहीं हुई है जिसको दूर करना है। और ये किसी एक का काम नहीं है, ये पहले तो चीज है कि पेट्रियार्कियल जो हमारी थॉट है उसको हमें काफी होगा। सेकंड चीज ये है कि अपनी तरफ से भी इनिशिएट करना होगा बिसाइड्स गवर्नमेंट इनिशिएटिव्स। सो वी आर टेकिंग अप हियर ओनली गवर्नमेंट इनिशिएटिव्स, दैट इज स्कीम फॉर एडोलेसेंट गर्ल्स इन ऑर्डर टू एम्पावर द गर्ल्स इन बिटवीन एज ग्रुप ऑफ 11 to 18। और उसमें उनको क्या सिखाया जाता है, उनको न्यूट्रिशन, उनको लाइफ स्किल्स, होम स्किल, वोकेशनल ट्रेनिंग वगैरह इस प्रोग्राम के थ्रू यहाँ पर दी जाती है। कई जगहों पे आपके वर्किंग विमेन हॉस्टल्स ओपन किए गए हैं जिससे कि विमेन को अगर जो सेफ्टी एंड सिक्योरिटी वाला हम लोगों ने इश्यू देखा उस इश्यू को यहाँ पर कह सकते हैं कॉम्बैट करने के लिए यहाँ पर अलग अलग तरीके से दिल्ली हो गया, अलग अलग आपके कह सकते हैं कैपिटल सिटीज में ये देखने मिल रहा है कि गवर्नमेंट ने वर्किंग वुमेन हॉस्टल बना के रखे हुए हैं जहाँ पे विमेन को बहुत कम फीस दे करके सेफ्टी एंड सिक्योरिटी के साथ वहां पर रहने को मिलता है, जिससे वो वहां पर आराम से रह करके वर्क भी कर सकती हैं, इवन अपनी हायर एजुकेशन को भी अटेन कर सकती हैं। थर्ड यहाँ पर एक जो आपकी इनिशिएटिव हुआ वो हुआ नेशनल क्रश स्कीम, यानी कि बच्चों के लिए छोटे छोटे क्रश खोल देना, जिसमें क्या होता है जो आपके कह सकते हैं कि बहुत नियोनेटल स्टूडेंट्स, आपके नियोनेटल आपके किड्स होते हैं या फिर जो इन्फेंट्स होते हैं, उन इन्फेंट्स को वहां पर रख करके जाते हैं। गांव में अगर देखें तो आपका आंगनवाड़ी जैसी स्कीम ओपन की गई है, जिसके थ्रू महिलाएं अपने बच्चों को वहां छोड़ करके जॉब में जा सकती हैं और एक तरह से इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटी को अटेन कर सकती हैं। ठीक, फर्दर यहाँ पर विमेन के नाम पे अब घर जो भी हम ले रहे हैं वो कोशिश की जाती है विमेन के नाम पर करने के लिए। बहुत सारी आपकी स्कीम्स वगैरह चलाई जाती हैं, जैसे प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना है कि विमेन के नाम पे रहेगी तो उनको एक इक्वल स्टेटस मिलेगा। फर्दर यहाँ पर कौशल विकास योजना भी आपकी 2015 में लाई गई, जिसमें ये है कि बहुत सारी, ये ऐसा नहीं कि केवल स्पेशली विमेन के लिए, लेकिन इन सारी योजनाओं में मैक्सिमम विमेन के लिए भी है, और जो नहीं है तो उसमें यह है कि विमेन को भी इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटी दी जाए, इक्वल ट्रेनिंग प्रोवाइड की जाए, जिसके थ्रू जो विमेन है वो ज्यादा से ज्यादा अपॉर्चुनिटीज ग्रास्प करके उसको अपने से कह सकते हैं उसके बेनिफिट्स को रीप आउट कर सके। फिर यहाँ पे जैसे दीनदयाल उपाध्याय नेशनल अर्बन लाइवलीहुड मिशन है, जिसमें कि उनको अलग से स्किल डेवलपमेंट की अपॉर्चुनिटीज प्रोवाइड करना, मार्केट बेस्ड एम्प्लॉयमेंट वगैरह प्रोवाइड करना। सुकन्या समृद्धि योजना है, फिर स्किल अपग्रेडेशन प्रोग्राम है, कोयर प्रोग्राम है, ये सारी चीजें यहाँ पर। तो ये तो एम्प्लॉयमेंट से रिलेटेड हुआ। फर्दर यहाँ एजुकेशन के लिए क्या किया जा रहा है, एजुकेशन के लिए यहाँ पर प्रॉपर तरीके से जो फीमेल हैं उनको यहाँ पर जैसे दिया जा रहा है, आपका कह सकते हैं कि जैसे समग्र शिक्षा स्कीम है, इंटीग्रेटेड आपकी जो स्कीम होती है आपकी एजुकेशन की स्कीम, जिसमें क्या हो रहा है कि जो गर्ल्स के पार्टिसिपेशन को इंक्रीज किया जा रहा है और साथ ही साथ यहाँ पर गर्ल्स को अलग से स्टाइपेंड वगैरह भी प्रोवाइड किया जाता है। कस्तूरबा गांधी बालिका विद्यालय, जो कि बहुत ज्यादा आपके बैकवर्ड एरियाज होती हैं, जिसमें कि आपके मेल्स को दूसरी दूर दूर जगह पे भेजने की लोग हिम्मत नहीं कर पाते हैं, तो गांव में ही जाकर के वो सारी एजुकेशन फैसिलिटीज प्रोवाइड की जाए, जिससे कि वो आगे बढ़ सके। फर्दर यूजीसी ने भी अलग अलग तरीके की विमेन के लिए, खास हायर एजुकेशन के लिए, क्योंकि जैसे हमने देखा कि हायर एजुकेशन में विमेन को अपॉर्चुनिटीज बहुत कम मिलती हैं, तो इसमें यहाँ पर ये भी है कि यूजीसी ने बहुत तरीके की आपकी फेलोशिप की स्कीम्स ला के रखी हैं फॉर विमेन ओनली, यानी कि विमेन के लिए अलग से फेलोशिप की स्कीम्स है, जिससे वहां से उनको इनकम भी मिल सके और वो अपनी पढ़ाई पूरी कर सके। जैसे अगर घर वाले वो पैसे नहीं दे पा रहे हैं, वो ध्यान में पेट्रियार्कल थॉट घूम रहा है कि उनकी पहले मैरिज करेंगे, वो पैसे उसमें काम आएंगे, तो यूनिवर्सिटी ग्रांट्स कमीशन यानी कि यूजीसी यहाँ पर एआईसीटीई ये सब मिल करके अलग अलग तरीके के लिए जेंडर इक्विटी लाने के लिए अलग अलग तरीके से यहाँ पर उनको फैसिलिटीज या आप कह सकते हैं फेलोशिप्स वगैरह प्रोवाइड करते हैं। फर्दर अगर हम हेल्थ एंड न्यूट्रिशन की बात करें तो गवर्नमेंट अलग से पोषण 2.0 स्कीम हो गई, आपकी प्रधानमंत्री मातृ वंदन योजना हो गई, आपकी आयुष्मान भारत योजना हो गई, ये सारी चीजें आपकी की जा रही हैं, और इन सब का नतीजा ये है कि आपकी जो मैटरनल मोर्टालिटी रेट थी वो अभी हमारी 75 पर लाख लाइफ बर्थ्स हो चुकी है, जो कि 2030 तक हमें 70 अचीव करना है, वो भी हम इजीली यहाँ पर कर सकेंगे। नेक्स्ट चीज क्या आती है, नेक्स्ट चीज यहाँ पर आपकी कह सकते हैं प्रधानमंत्री उज्ज्वला योजना की, जो आपकी कह सकते हैं कि सिर्फ और सिर्फ कोल और ये सब यूज कर रही थी, तो अब एलपीजी सिलेंडर फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट यूज करने से यहाँ पर उनकी हेल्थ और हाइजीन दोनों चीज यहाँ पर मेंटेन प्रॉपर तरीके से की जा सकती है। तो इन सारे तरीकों से ये जो हमारी जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी है इसको दूर किया जा सकता है। थैंक यू। हेलो।
Yes, ma'am. We have a question in the chat box.
Okay.
This is asking, ma'am, a woman is the enemy of another woman, and that it all
Chat
starts
box.
in family itself.
Yes.
Sometimes, we are talking, we say that it's a boy, so this work should be done only
Still we are
by.
facing this. Do you agree with the point if gender inequality is stopped from us, then it will decrease? Yes, I agree. Yes, because I told you earlier that because of this patriarchal thought, or you can say patriarchal system, these things are growing up more and more. And if we stop this patriarchal thought, or you can say if we stop, or if we, or you can say reduce some kind of this patriarchal thought, we can get equal opportunity and this kind of issue can be stopped. And because of these issues, further issues also grow up from that, like a mushroom, like domestic violence and other things also grow because of these kind of issues.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We don't have any further questions. Thank you, ma'am, for your very good deliberation.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Going forward, now we have our final speaker, Dr. Elham Hussain. Welcome you, sir, to the second day of the international webinar. Dr. Elham Hussain is an academic, essayist, translator, editor, and literary critic. He did his BA honors and MA in English literature. He wrote his MPhil dissertation on the colonial literature and doctoral dissertation on the novels of Chinua Achebe in the University of Dhaka. Dr. Hussain has authored 14 books, Angst and Anxieties, Historical and Psychological Parallels in Chinua Achebe's trilogy, Africa, Sahitya O, Nandan Bhavna, African Literature and Aesthetics, African Short Stories and Literary Thoughts, Tales of World Literature, Colonial Encounter and Post-Colonial Ambivalence, Pragati Sahitya are some of his seminal books. He has translated Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart and The Trouble with Nigeria and Ben Okri's The Freedom Artist, Bengali Leadership. His field of studies encompasses colonial and post-colonial literature, South Asian and African literature, hermeneutics, anthropology, and history. He is the founder of African Literature Center, Dhaka. He is a member of the editorial boards of a good number of academic journals. More than 100 of his research articles have been published in national and international journals. Dr. Hussain serves as a faculty in Rajshahi University of Engineering and Technology and National University, Bangladesh. At present, he is working as professor in the Department of English of Dhaka City College. You're most welcome, sir. Please do start your introduction. You are not audible, sir. Please unmute yourself, sir. You're not audible.
Thank you, madam. Am I audible now?
Now you're audible, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for your generous introduction. Good morning and namaskar to everybody. It's my immense pleasure to be with you all. And it's also my immense pleasure to be invited as a speaker by Mahila Shilpakala Bhavan College, Bihar. I express my humble thanks and gratitude to the principal, sir, Dr. Nalin Bilochan, organizing secretary, Dr. Vinamrata Singh, head of the Department of English, convener Ritu Verma, head of the Department of Economics, and joint convener Dr. Lalit Prabha, Department of English, and joint convener Shilpa Bharti, and all the faculties, scholars, and students. And once again, my namaskar to you. Actually, I was enjoying the paper presented by Amisha Gupta. It's a very nice paper. And some points that she has mentioned are really very crucial. So I congratulate her. Actually, the seminar theme, gender discrimination, socio-economic development and globalization, is of course a very timely and crucial issue. I feel lucky to be a part of such an international platform where this topic will be discussed, I hope, seriously and critically among the scholars from the perspective of our subcontinent. Actually, today I'd like to share some of my views about the impact of globalization on the women of third world countries like ours, and how our women are responding to gender inequality, living in the world of corporate economy I will also refer to a few literary works of India, of Africa, and Bangladesh also to fortify my discussion. Actually, globalization, which is a profit-making capitalist mission, like the exploitative and so-called civilizing mission of previous colonialism. And today we call globalization a kind of recolonization mission on the part of the first world countries. And this globalization goes hand in hand with economic liberalization throughout the world. It has melted down borders among the countries of the world, and corporate economy, hand in hand with the power structure, has altered the mode of production and types of employment. Politics has shaken hands with capitalism now. And crony capitalism has now become the driving force of power relations, which works as both an individual character and in the form of abstraction, not only social, political, cultural, and religious institutions, but also abstract entities like fate, age, belief system, and ideologies are controlled by the power relations that has been honed by globalization. Emergence of export-oriented industries in different countries has become a phenomenal event all over the world. And digital technology has taken the whole world into its grip. Man is now apprehending whether within at best 2 or 3 decades, his job market will be occupied by artificial intelligence. Not only that, Western feminist discourse, which is mostly political, is generalizing the conditions of the women of the part of the world like ours and leading them to an unequal platform of income generating activities, where the first world women are getting more exposure to job market. In this precarious situation, what should be the role of our women, especially the women of the subcontinent? It's a crucial question. And if we want to answer to this question, we have to know the difference between the feminist discourse of the first world countries that tends to generalize the conditions of our women and our feminism, that is the feminism which emerges out of our realities, the realities in which our women live. True, the third world women are now getting themselves involved in income generating activities. So with the rise of globalization, we find this phenomenon. But in competition with men due to the lack of proper education, sufficient education and skills, can't compete competently. So I think feminism does never mean to make a woman stand against man. Actually, feminism means that a woman should have the chances and opportunities to explore her possibilities, the opportunities and chances that a man enjoys. So binary man and woman, binary oppositions, man and woman. I do not like to settle this binary. I just like to say that a woman should have the chances and opportunities that a man has. So as our women do not get sufficient education and they do not get sufficient opportunities to develop their skills. As a result, instead of gender equality, the problem of gender inequality is widening. Women are investing their whole days in job, and in return, they get a scanty amount. Moreover, they can't get sufficient time to take care of themselves, their families, and children. I just like to give you an example. Suppose in our country, Bangladesh, 2 million women are working in garments, ready-made garments factories. They go to the garments factory early in the morning. They start from home at 5 or 6 in the morning, and they return home at in the evening at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock. Just think, they invest their whole day to their job, but in return, the amount that they receive is not sufficient. Not only that, they do not get sufficient time to take care of their children, of their family. So globalization is creating job opportunities for our women, but it is snatching away your time, your family life, your mental health. So the children who do not get sufficient care from the mother who is investing all day in the garments factory have chances to be misguided or to be deviated. They may be led to drug addictions and some other bad practices. They do not get sufficient chances for education, as the mother, the money that she earns is not sufficient for providing him good schooling. So in this way, globalization in disguise is creating a perennial or a permanent pool of cheap labor, so that our garments workers' children may be garments worker in future, and they may exert their labor to the capitalists. So in this way, globalization, though it sounds benevolent superficially, it has shaken hands with the capitalists. And capitalism, under the subterfuge of creating job opportunities for our women, is creating discriminations in providing jobs. And they have set some mechanisms out of which a working woman finds it is quite difficult, or at least impossible to make her children a good human resource in future. So in this way, we find that globalization is not creating gender equality, or it is not contributing to gender equality. It is rather creating a lot of inequalities on the basis of economic support. And these women cannot take care of their families, and they are perpetuating the process of producing laborers. That is, the capitalists are perpetuating the process of producing laborers who in future will serve as an endless pool of cheap labor to the capitalists. Under such a crucial and different situation, feminism, which is utterly a political position, assumes a different shape and definition in developing countries, because definition changes with the change of context. That is, the feminist framework provided by the first world country is not fit to assess or to estimate the conditions and situations and cases and issues of our women living in this subcontinent. The way in which women's experiences, rights, and identities are considered critically in the developing countries like ours may be popularly known as third world feminism. So we should have our own feminism. And I think subcontinent has got its own feminist framework of thinking, of looking at our women or evaluating our women's cases. Suppose Africa has got its own feminist framework. Afro-Americans have got their own feminist framework. So if we borrow the framework of Western countries, especially of feminism, and try to estimate the conditions of our women, which is also a part of the deliberate politics of globalization, then it has got the chances of stereotyping our conditions. So I think this very issue is to be taken very seriously and critically. The term third world is deliberately imposed upon the countries by the first world countries, which were once ruled, that is the countries which were once ruled and exploited by the colonial nations. And Ama Ata Aidu, a literature from Ghana, proposes the terms bourgeois nations for the first world countries and the proletarian nations for the third world countries. Amata Aidu is not ready to call African countries third world countries. She brands African countries as third world, as proletarian countries. And the first world countries, that is Western countries, are bourgeois nations or bourgeois countries. And Aidu Ismails are deliberate politics of the self-declared first world nations to historicize the economically growing nations, which are still restlessly to override the aggression of neo-colonial enterprises. For many regions, women are not given sufficient space in economic activities and education. They're rather treated as subservient to men. But due to the development of global communication, industrialization, and corporatization of nation state, women show a desire to share their space and encounter antagonistic forces. They are not free subject of thought and action. This condition of women varies from country to country, as the nature of post-colonialism varies from country to country. So post-colonial situations are not same that we find in this subcontinent. You may not find it in African countries. So post-colonial situations change. So the nature of feminist attitude or feminist framework will also change. Hence, there exist post-colonialisms and feminisms. So post-colonialism is not singular, it's plural. And feminism is also plural. It is not singular. Feminism in proletarian nations is different from that of bourgeois nations regarding the diversity of political, social, cultural, ecological, and economic realities. So even ecological changes have great impact on the displacement of women, not only patriarchy or patriarchal discourses that we find exercising hegemony in our society. Side by side, ecological changes for which the bourgeois nations are mostly responsible. These ecological changes are causing displacement of our women, especially in this subcontinent. I like to give you an example from Amitabh Ghosh's novel, Gone Island, and I will come to that very example later, very soon. I like to mention the situation of our women during COVID-19. During COVID-19, the phenomenon of sexual violence or the obnoxious incident of rape in Bangladesh and in some other parts of this subcontinent makes women raise a question regarding their right to share a space in the society side by side with men. So Virginia Woolf, a feminist, once wrote an essay, A Room of One's Own. So in the emerging situations of this subcontinent, our women, like Virginia Woolf, claim a place, a site, a space of their own. And they also claim, just like Elaine Showalter, a literature of their own. Actually, during COVID-19 pandemic, one of our intellectuals in our country said that now two pandemics are going hand in hand. One is COVID-19 pandemic, and another pandemic is the violence against our women. So just think, that was the condition during pandemic, and even after pandemic, this condition is not satisfactorily better. However, this space, the space that our women claim, or the home place, as defined by Bell Hooks. Bell Hooks is an Afro-American feminist or theorist. In her book, Yearning, Race, Gender, and Cultural Politics, the book was published in 1990. In this very book, Bell Hooks refers to a place of safety and security, and that is not a home, which says, you do not belong here. So if a place says that you do not belong here, then that very place is not safe for women. So the home is the place where all that truly mattered in life took place, the warmth and comfort of shelter. In this way, Bell Hooks defines home. So what is home, or what is site? Actually, home in theory, especially feminist theory, plays a very important role, because it is the place where the thoughts and ideas, the discourses of women germinate. A home place teaches dignity and enables women to confront the issues of humanization. So humanization is a very important issue, because patriarchy and some other issues related to crony capitalism try to dehumanize women. So women are conscious of humanization. Bell Hooks has said in the chapter entitled, she has got a chapter in this book. The title of the chapter is Home Place. And in that very chapter, she says that a Black woman, unlike an American white woman, does not primarily wrestle for political inequality with men. She rather struggles for safety, security, and dignity. She stands against sexism and racism. And thus, home place generates community, resistance shared by all the women of third world, where domestic and social security is more an important issue than political equality. Thus, the feminism in the third world has taken a new and distinctive dimension, posing itself against patriarchy, which is analogous with colonial and imperial hegemony. It provides an impetus of resistance against the fetishistic worship of commodities, cultural aggression, and imperial hegemony promulgated by globalization or recolonization under the subterfuge of liberalism and neoliberalism. But the third world women are to fight against domestic, normative, cultural, and ideological repressions more than political exploitations, as it is usually found in first world countries. That is, a woman in our subcontinent, in our setting, is to fight not only for her political rights, but also fight against the myths which are current in her society, the myths which are used as apparatuses by patriarchy, or even the religious ideologies used as apparatus by patriarchy. So she is to fight against all these narratives, oppressive narratives. So the realities in which our women live are different from those of the first world countries. To lend weight to this view, let me draw an example from a literary text. Namibian author Millie Japta depicts this stern reality in her short story Homecoming. Homecoming is a very prominent short story. It's written by Millie Japta, a Namibian female author. In this story, a woman in her 50s is returning to her native village, which she left nearly 40 years ago. So just think, a woman left her village 40 years ago for her living. We live in a compartmentalized society. The society is just like a train. Some people are living in first-class compartment, and some are living in third-class compartment. If you go to African country, suppose Kenya, if you visit our slum there, the water that we use in a single flush in our toilet is not available to an African woman for her whole day use. So the reality that she faces is not with a first world woman. So the feminism or feminist narrative or discourse that she will produce will be totally different from that of the first world woman. So that very woman, that is the woman of that short story, left her village 40 years ago. And because of that, she could not provide enough time for the nursing and care of her children. Now, at the ebb of her life, she apprehends that they may not take much interest in her return to them after 40 years. So just think how capitalism tilts upon the maternal relationship between mother and children. It is determined, it is decided by capitalist enterprises or corporate economy. Her daughter, who has come to receive her at the bus stop, seems to her to be a stranger. A stranger, this very word I am quoting from that very text. That is, our daughter seems to be a stranger to a mother. The bridge between mother and her daughter has been caused by her inability to attend them with sufficient time, as she invested all her time to the service of her upper-class master's household chores, for earning her livelihood, for survival, and this inability has made her children grow up in a different framework of mind. And it has the chances to generate resistance against the oppressive system of patriarchal domination and hegemony that tend to alienate women and transform her into an other. The woman can't believe her ears when her daughter repeatedly asks her whether she is walking too fast for her, because in 40 years of her career as a housemaid, nobody lends his or her ears to her to know whether she has her personal life or not. So just think how capitalism has transformed a woman into a machine. And she has now started thinking that nobody believes that she has got her personal emotions. She has got her own pain and agonies. So she awfully asserts, I'm quoting from that short story of Millie Japta, someone was actually asking me whether I could keep up, not telling me to walk faster, to have no males in my room, to get up earlier, to pay more attention, to wash the dog. So these are the jobs of a day in the household of her master. And everybody asks her whether she has taken care of the pet dog of her master, whether she has washed the floor or whether she has cleaned the floor. But nobody never asked her whether she was feeling well or not. So in this way, capitalism creates or generates a kind of heartlessness in the relationship between man, man and woman. Because in a compartmentalized society, man is not man. In a compartmentalized society, which is mostly hegemonized by the capitalists, a man is a factory of labor that Karl Marx has also mentioned. That is, he will have to generate labor, and in return, he will get some money to survive. He will not get the money for luxury. He will get the money to be equal to him or equal to her. He will get the money for survival only and produce more labor and labor so that he can maximize his profit. Now, such displacement occurs due to economic discrimination and unequal competition in the market of commodities and urbanization, an inevitable impact of globalization. When economic development is concentrated only on cities, not decentralized, people then migrate for living, and in this migration, women become the worst victims in competition with corporate enterprises of the capitalists. The rural handicrafts and cottage industry fail. Scanty investment of women cannot compete with the billion-dollar project of the capitalists. Village women who mostly run cottage industry ultimately lose their work, and while for survival they come to cities, they fall victim to uncertainties. And picture like this is depicted in Ngugi wa Thiong'o's novel, Petals of Blood. In this very novel, we find an aged woman. The name of the woman is Nia Kinua, and she was the grandmother of Wanza, a female protagonist of that text. And this very aged woman could produce a local drink, very popular local drink and special local drink. The name of the drink is Tangata, with exceptional taste. And many people from different parts of the area came to have the taste of that drink once. But this very woman ultimately finds that the capitalists from the city come to her village and they show interest in her drinks. And after they learn the procedure of producing this drink, they start the commercial production of that drink. And the woman was also given a loan, that is microcredit. She took loan for setting up a shop, but she could not survive in competition with the investment, handsome investment of the capitalists. So she fails. And after a few days, she hears that her land is forfeited, that is confiscated, because of her incapacity to pay off the loan with which she was bamboozled. She was beguiled. Just think, loan given by banks to the village women for becoming self-reliant is not making them self-reliant, because in competition with billion-dollar project of the capitalists, they cannot survive. So the products that they manufacture is not as much or as many as the capitalists with $1 million investment produce every day. Ultimately, they become bankrupt. That is, the village women become bankrupt, leave the village for the city, and fall victim to different types of violence. They come to cities, they live in the slums, they do the job of housemaids in rich people's or the capitalists' houses. So just think how the society is compartmentalized, and then that is under the subterfuge of creating job opportunities for women. The women are still marginalized economically, especially in our society. Another example I just like to give from Amitabh Ghosh's famous novel Gun Island. Amitabh Ghosh depicts a similar picture in this text. Not only economic regions, but also ecological imbalance contributes to the miseries of women. Amitabh Ghosh in his Gun Island depicts how women living in coastal areas adjacent to the Sundarbans, after being ousted by natural disaster and many other regions for which the capitalists are mostly responsible, these women come to the city. They are compelled to choose the profession of prostitution, and they fall victim to the evil traffickers, and undergo a lot of untold sufferings. And Amitabh Ghosh has said in that very particular text that refineries have been set on the banks of the rivers, in the estuary, in the coastal areas of the Bay of Bengal. And because of the contamination, biodiversity is collapsing, and people could not catch fish sufficiently to survive. So they are bound to leave their homes, and they come to the cities, and there they fall victim to different uncertain situations and realities. So ecological imbalance, which is also caused or for which the capitalist countries are also responsible, our women suffer a lot. In the same vein, in this subcontinent, many female authors towards the end of the last century and even today, for example, Anita Desai, Anita Nair, Meena Kandasamy, Urvashi Butalia, Kamala Dash, Arundhati Roy, Mohasheta Devi, and from Bangladesh, Taslima Nasreen, and many prominent female authors have produced fiction, short stories, and poems with female protagonists. I like to give you an example from Mohasheta Devi's famous short story, Stonnodaini, that is breast giver. It's a very glaring example with the content that fits the third world feminism. In this short story, Mohasheta Devi exhibits that feminism to a Dalit woman is not as it is to a middle-class woman, even in the third world country. So feminism, even in third world country, is compartmentalized. So we cannot generalize feminism to generalize the conditions of our women. We have to be critical. We have to reread feminism or feminist discourse if we want to evaluate the situations and realities in which our women of different areas with diverse conditions live. So Mohasheta Devi, I just like to make you know, I'll let you know in brief the story of Mohasheta Devi, Stonnodaini, or breast giver in English translation. Even in the same country, feminist ideas may be compartmentalized. Mohasheta Devi gives this very conception. For example, in this story, Joshoda, the female protagonist, stays almost always pregnant, only to be able to lactate so that she can suckle the babies of Haldar's daughters-in-law, who do not suckle their babies to maintain particular shapes of their bodies. So just think, women of the same society with different with economic conditions enjoy different privileges of the society. So we cannot categorize or generalize these two women from two different realities. So Joshoda always remains pregnant. So why? Because Haldar's family's women do not want to suckle their babies to maintain particular shapes of their bodies. So they ask Joshoda to suckle their babies on their part. And that was the means of Joshoda's survival. And to do that job, that very means of survival or existence, Joshoda always remains pregnant to lactate. In return, she saves her children and her husband, Kangali Charan, from starvation. So just think, in course of time, cancer hits Joshoda's breasts, the only means of her survival. Her body becomes alien to her. Once she took a great care of her breasts so that Haldar's babies might not feel suffocated by the stinking odor of her body. But now those breasts are oozing pus. Now her body is betraying her. Her husband, who once used to fondle her in love, is now indulging himself in the caresses of Golapi, another woman. Even motherhood does not allow Joshoda to give her body to herself. Joshoda's career as a wet nurse alienated her from her own children, from her own maternity. That I have already mentioned, that a garments worker works for the capitalist, but she does not get, or she is not allowed to take care of her children. It is because of the tight schedule set by the capitalists in which she works. So Joshoda's career as a wet nurse alienated her from her own children, from her own maternity. Her body is no longer hers. It is also defined by Julia Kristeva in her essay, Sabbath Matter. According to Kristeva, motherhood is a slow apprenticeship in forgetfulness of the self and ultimately has a positive effect. So Joshoda's motherhood is full of pain and agony. She succors her family and children. They eat upon her, exhaust her. In return, she gets nothing. Her children and family symbolize exploitation whose victim, a woman, undergoes self-effacement. She goes through the process of dehumanization and objectification. In one situation, while Joshoda was suckling her grandson and quietening him quickly, the Haldar matriarch exclaims, quote, "The good Lord sent you down as the legendary cow of fulfillment," unquote. So with these words, Joshoda's entity is dehumanized and her human desires are denied. And after her death, as she is a Dalit woman, nobody comes to her funeral. A Dalit man cremated her body. The woman who suckles 50 children dies unheard and unattended. Haldar's disconnected their phone on the very night Jashoda died. So just think of the behavior. Haldar's family represents a bourgeois family with capital. So this family disconnected the phone on the night on which Jashoda died. They didn't make any communication with Jashoda, the woman who suckled 50 children of this family. Thus, in the capitalistic society, even motherhood or maternity is sold for survival as a woman. Like every working class individual is nothing but a factory of labor. So even motherhood is transformed into a commodity by capital. And there is no room here for any need she may have as a woman. Though ironically, in Julia Kristeva's words, mother is the motor of existence. Julia Kristeva, in her essay, has said, mother is the motor of existence. But what happens to this mother, Jashoda? Thus, predicament and location of third world women, and at the same time, their attempt to define themselves makes the readers think of their homeland. Actually, a home place. Actually, home place turns into a community where people can return easily and pose resistance against the system that occupies, assaults, challenges, and subjugates womanhood. The realities in which that I have already said that the realities in which the third world women live are not available in with the women of first world countries. So I think with all these examples that I have already mentioned, I think we have to be critical in using or in discussing feminism or feminist discourse. I think I have taken a lot of time. I just like to conclude my speech within 3 or 4 minutes. Actually, a child of a housemaid, as I have already mentioned, Jashoda, or a female garment worker who, due to her hectic workload, does not find enough time to take care of her child, may turn into a voice against the cruelty of the repressive socio-economic system. Actually, this is a positive aspect that Bell Hooks has mentioned. Usually, the impetus behind this resistance emanates from a sense of value provided by its mother struggles, metaphorically interpreted rebellion and revolution against colonizers and even against the domestic antagonism that oppresses the mother country, emerge out of some significant discourses, of which feminist discourse is one. Even the response of the post-colonial generations towards the ex-colonizers and the present-day imperialists is shaped by the mother country, which plays the role of the home place, whose dehumanized and marginalized condition stimulates this impetus of resistance. Thus, mother and home place become synonymous, and they serve as a site of resistance. And according to Bell Hooks, this site serves as a meaningful community of resistance. This resistance will stand against otherization, subalternization, or marginalization of our women, and the patriarchy, which intends to marginalize women, will also be challenged or countered by this very resistance that will emerge out of this home place or the space of women. I think I am hopeful, and our women will compete with the first world countries. Our women will be able to take up the challenges produced by or offered by globalization, as our women are now trying to voice their own necessities, voice their own conditions, and questioning the authority and power, I think they will be able, they have already obtained a lot, but I think they will also be able further to ensure a very safe and secure place for their own. They will have their room, they will have the room of their own. So I think I like to stop now. I have taken a lot of time. Thank you very much for lending your ears to me and hearing me very patiently. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for this enlightening lecture. And of course, your lecture was so prolific. You touched upon all the aspects of whatever is there in literature, be it hegemony, be it resistance, be it talking about the third world countries, of the how the women in the third world countries are subjugated, and what is the need or the necessity today of resistance, and how these resistance can be a resistance against capitalism, colonialism, recolonialism, the phrase that you mentioned, against the systems of patriarchy, and of course against the misogynistic world that we are like living in. So very enlightful lecture from your side, sir, and we are really thankful that on such short notice you accepted our invitation to join us and illuminated us with all your insights. So
Thank you, madam.
thank you so much, sir. With this, we move on towards the end of the seminar, and those participants who are willing to present their paper can message us in our WhatsApp group, or they can message us personally, so that we will give you time in parallel session. Now, winding up with the second day of the international seminar. The first day we started with our two eminent speakers. The local speakers we had here was Dr. Arpana, and from English department, RSS Mahila College, Sitamarhi, and Dr. Manjari Anand from RDS College, Assistant Professor of Economics here in BRA, Bihar University. They both gave their very inspiring lectures yesterday, and we came to learn a lot about the economic terms. Plus, it was a very unique combination. Basically, this is itself a unique combination of economics and English going hand in hand. So we got all the economic data as well as we got all the literary aspects, because Arpana ma'am focused basically on the nuances of Chitra Banerjee Devpuni and her novels, giving or citing references from there. So I would like to thank them both. Then I would like to thank our first speaker today, Mr. Shyam Singh from Rockford, Illinois. He talked about his experiences in developing the economic faculties and how your upliftment is in your hands. He talked about the various inspirational pursues if you want to reach higher studies. And he just ended up with saying that there is never failing hope. We must always aspire for hope. And then I would like to thank Dr. Purnima, who explained all such terms which are nowadays revolving around the feministic issues, how women are treated as the inequals in the higher level of education system also. And when we even talk about the system where women are being not being given the proper preferences in administrative jobs. She talked about misogyny and academia. She talked about gynobibliophobia, about physical harassment in workplaces, and of course she gave us very informative terms like glass ceilings, glass walls, glass elevator, and so on and so forth. So moving from Dr. Purnima, who is an assistant professor of English in BKM from Banaras Hindu University, we move on to, or I extend my thanks towards Dr. Anita Gupta, who is again from Department of Economics, Banaras Hindu University. She talked about the gender inequality and global gender gap, how in economic participation and economic development, women is denied their share. And she gave us all the economic data and how in terms of higher education, now India is lacking in that perspective. So what are the measures or how can we tackle all this? And of course, through all this debate that is ongoing around this topic that we have been talking for long, it all ends up into this, that everything is revolving around this patriarchal world. So one of the basic nuances is that in the system we have to strive towards the removal of the patriarchal notions. So I would like to thank all my speakers, plus I would like to thank all my co-workers during this seminar, Dr. Ritu Verma from Department of Economics, Dr. Shilpa Bharti from the Department of Economics, Dr. Lalit Prabha from our English department from MSKB College, plus the whole of the teaching staff here who extended their helping hands towards the success of this seminar. Plus, I would like to thank our principal, Dr. Nalin Lochun sir, who kept on guiding us through this endeavor. I would also like to thank Dr. Lokmanya Pratap sir and Dr. Lakshmi Rani ma'am, whose inspiration and endless hard work can always be seen in any such events which we organize, and their motivation is very uplifting for us. So I would like to thank all the people. I may be missing some names, so I would like to thank whoever I'm missing out also. So everyone who participated in this seminar, and of course the participants, because for your patience, because for your active participation, you gave us your time, you joined us, and you were there with us throughout the experience that we gained from all these speakers. So I would like to thank all of you. And with this, we end up this session of the seminar. Now, anyone who wants to participate in the parallel session, please can send us the message, or any of the organizing secretaries here. Plus, you must actually fill the feedback form, because based on that only we will be issuing you certificates. So I request you all to please fill out the feedback forms. And with this, I would like to end up the seminar, or the 2-day international seminar. And thank you all for your participation. Have a nice day.